Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November 6th Hanford Advisory Board meeting. My name is Lindsay Summers, and I am the Deputy Designated Federal Officer for the Hanford site. As a reminder, this meeting will be conducted in accordance with the requirements of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. Advisory committees have played an important role in shaping programs and policies of the federal government. The Hanford Advisory Board's role is to provide policy-level advice and recommendations concerning EM site-specific issues. I would like to remind everyone to assume noble intent and to adhere to your operating ground rules. I appreciate your attendance today and look forward to the robust meeting. Thank you. Josh?
All right, a couple of administrative items and meeting convention things to go over before we begin. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Hanford site YouTube channel. We request that everyone in attendance, board, public, or otherwise, please sign in. We have a sign-in sheet for those in person up at the table by Chandra. And for those online, we would appreciate it if you would enter your name and affiliation into the Teams chat, and we'll use that as a virtual sign-in. Because this is the first board for our new members, I want to go over a few ground rules. They're exactly what you might expect. Things like listen carefully, honor the guidance of the chair and facilitator, be respectful and assume all participants have good intentions, minimize sidebar conversations in the room and in chat, and mute yourself online or leave the room if you must answer a phone call. If you need a reminder of that, or need to review them more closely, you will find that these are located on the base of your table tent. Let's see. When we do our presentations, we usually like to provide the presenters and the agencies all a chance to talk before we move on to questions. And when we get to board questions, you can use this table tent to enter a queue to speak. We ask that you, for the time being, limit it to one question and then move to the back of queue. So make sure everyone has a chance to get their questions answered and helps our presenters track the questions and answer what you're asking fully. And one final item, you may have seen on the upper regions of your agenda, we like to provide extra time at the end of each agenda item for alternate member questions. Occasionally we'll have an instance where two members of the same seat are attending at the same time, and we want to make sure everyone has a chance to get their questions answered. And with that, I think we're ready to hand it over to Susan.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Pasco, Washington. This is the first time at this venue, and I hope you all enjoy it. Just, as Josh said, please, be respectful of each other. We have a board of incredibly diverse experience. And so sometimes we kind of can, get in each other's way. Let's be collegial and respectful of everyone so that we can learn from each other as we go. Let's do a introductions.
All right, I will lead those off. My name is Josh Patnod. I'm with the HAB facilitation team, and we will move going to my left.
Lindsay Summers, DOE.
Brian Vance, DOE Hanford Site Manager.
Eddie Holbrook, Deputy Program Manager for Nuclear Waste Program.
Ryan Miller with Ecology.
Dave Enan with EPA.
Roberto Armijo with EPA.
Cass Galasso, EPA.
Kevin Danby, Citizen Representative for Grant and Franklin County.
Pam Larson, I represent Benton County on the HAB.
Chris Sutton, Local Environmental Interest.
Spencer Harris, Cadillac Regional Medical Center.
Richard Bloom, City of West Richmond.
Aaron Siefkin, Central Washington Building Trades.
Matthew Campbell, Confederated Tribes, the Umatilla Indian Reservation.
Susan Coleman, Public at Large.
Mia Burke, Hanford Challenge and Vice Chair of the HAB.
Tom Cecilia, Oregon Department of Energy.
Michael Lee, Columbia Basin College.
Brian Ivy, Public at Large.
Ed Parsons, Public at Large.
Larry Brandt, Public at Large.
And we have additional board members and agency support attending online. I'm going to go down the team's list as I see it and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. Please be ready to open your microphone when I call your name. And I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. We'll start with Ambika. Chuck.
Chuck Torelli, City of Kennewick.
Suzanne.
Suzanne Dahl, Washington State Department of Ecology. Good morning.
Good morning. Dan.
Good morning, Dan McDonald with Ecology.
Initials KB.
It's Christy Baptiste with the Nez Perce Tribe. Good morning.
Kelsey.
Yes, hi, Kelsey Shank with The Edge. Good morning.
Kermit.
Kermit Mankiller with the Nez Perce Tribe, ERWM.
Jane.
Jane LePage with the Washington Department of Health.
Lee.
Lee Wang, Yakima Nation, ERWM.
Dan McDonald. Dana.
Dana McFadden, Ecology.
Michelle.
Michelle Holt with the Benton Franklin Council of Governments.
Rose.
Rose Ferry, Yakima Nation, ERWM program.
Sure.
Shiragev, Employee Non-Bargaining Unit, Non-Exempt.
Simone.
Simone Anter, Columbia River Keeper.
Michael.
I'm Michael Turner with HMIS, Tri-Party Agreement Support.
Amber.
Good morning, Amber Waldrop, Heart of America Northwest.
Wayne. Okay. And Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah Williams with Ecology.
Okay. And we've gone around the table and down the list. Are there any announcements we need to share before we begin?
Josh, during that process, we had 3 people walk in. Kathy, Jim, and Sean.
Thank you for tracking. Go ahead.
If you would introduce yourselves.
Oh, Jim Doherty, Oregon Hanford Cleanup Board.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dubois. I am non-union, non-management employee.
Okay. And so, like I mentioned earlier, at the end of questions, we'll have a chance for alternates to ask questions. There are a couple instances here where we do have a primary and an alternate from the same seat. I just wanted to note that as an example of the separation there. And are there any announcements to share before we begin?
I would like to make, I don't know if I would consider it an announcement, but I would like to recognize that this is the Native American Heritage Month. And I would like to acknowledge the long-standing history that our Native American board members have had with the Hanford Advisory Board and the Hanford site. And thank you. That's it for my announcements.
All right, thank you. And with that, I think we're ready to begin the Tri-Party Agreement Agency updates. We'll begin with Brian Vance.
All right, thank you all. It's really great to be here. what I'll do first is introduce the leadership team of the Hanford site. We try to periodically bring all the assistant managers and folks out to the site, out to the board, just to provide an opportunity for them to hear the discussions, but also during breaks and things have conversations with all of you. So I'll just go down the list and they'll raise their hands and wave. And I think we dominate the room, so that's great too. Brian Stickney, Deputy Manager for the Hanford site. Brian Harkins, the Assistant Manager for Mission Support. Heather Dale, Assistant Manager for River and Plateau. Ricky Bang, representing he's Deputy Assistant Manager for Tank Waste Operations. Chris Grubbs, our very new Assistant Manager for Procurement, started his new job on Monday, so we're great that Chris is here. Pam Zimmerman, Chief of Staff. Rich Buell, our Director of Communications. Mark Silberstein, our Chief Counsel. And Corey Lowe, Assistant Manager for Safety and Environment. Did I miss anybody? Oh, and Greg Jones, of course. I could never have any discussion with our Chief Financial Officer, Greg Jones. Anybody else? Oh, and Deanna, I'm sorry, I didn't see you sneak in. Deanna is also Assistant Manager for Safety and Quality for our team, acting. Anybody else that I missed in my terrible representation of our team? So, again, I did get Pam. Okay. She would yell at me if I didn't, so. All right, so next slide. This is the traditional view of the site. I use this very frequently, really just to set some context for what we'll talk about today. And I won't talk about all the elements. You've seen this before. One thing to recognize, though, we have one mission at Hanford site. That's the cleanup of the Hanford site as framed there. I list the key activities here just to highlight really the broad range of things across across the site that we're executing every day. We talk about the site and we think about the site in three different product lines. The tank waste treatment and disposition product line, the risk reduction product line, which is traditional demolition and remediation projects, and then base ops and infrastructure is really the third product line. They are all essential for us to be successful at Hanford, and we pay attention to all three. The focus areas, those have also remained consistent, and they are really have been core to our ability to lead the transformation that we're leading at the Hanford site, from more of a traditional demolition and construction site into or back into more of an operational site with the start of the tank waste treatment mission really just around the corner. And I think in many ways it's enhanced our ability to deliver safely, efficiently, predictably the progress that's so important to our site team and obviously the Tri-Cities community in the Pacific Northwest. And I think that performance has been evident over the last several years and will continue into next year, as I'll talk about in a few minutes. The next slide is our lineup. We continue to strive to function as a single Hanford enterprise team across the department, all of our contractors, the subcontractors, everyone that supports our overall site. And I'll just go around the horn to provide you with a couple of updates. The first one at the top, we became the Hanford field office on the 1st of October. So we're no longer two different field offices at Hanford, Richland Operations Office and the Officer of Protection, which we had been for over 20 years. We made that final transition on the 1st of October, and now we're the one enterprise driving the Hanford site from a DOE perspective. Going clockwise, Washington River Protection Solutions is our tank farms contractor. On the 21st of October, we began the transition to our new contractor partner, H2C, which is a limited liability corporation led by BWXT with Amentum and Fluor as their partners. They'll go through a 120-day transition period, and so they'll take over the tank farms mission in February of 2025. Bechtel is our waste treatment plant contractor. They'll continue in that role through hot commissioning for the low activity waste side of the waste treatment plant. At that point, H2C will take over that scope, but don't anticipate that until 2026. So it's really a two-phase transition for H2C. And then Bechtel will continue on with the design and construction of the high-level waste facility beyond that transition to H2C on the low activity side. Inomedic is our occupational healthcare provider. They began as a member of our site team on the 1st of January, so relatively new. 222S Lab, Navarro ATL, they took over in April 2021, and they do a tremendous job at the facility, at the lab, and frankly, as a partner across with all the other site contractors. CPCco runs the risk reduction portfolio. They took over in January of 2021. And then HMIS also took over in January 2021, and they do the site-wide services, site integration, and our infrastructure work. So this is the 6th contractor with the UE team that we are executing the mission of the Hanford site together. Next slide, the funding picture. This is helpful just to get a sense of the long-term commitment, not only by the administration and department, but also Congress over the life of the cleanup mission. Nearly $66 billion invested in the cleanup, and that's through 2023. And as you know, we have just over $3 billion in 2024. Upper left represents the increases of the site budget over the last several years. Currently we're operating under a continuing resolution until late, I think the 20th of December. No impacts on our plans in the near term, and we expect to continue to operate throughout the rest of the year. And I'm confident there'll be either continuing resolutions or a bill passed to keep us moving forward. Bottom left, when we look at the site population, the Department of Energy team, as of today, is 307. We've got about 200 support contractors who support my staff. So my staff is 500. Overseeing the primes, who generally run between 9,000 and 10,000, and then the subcontractors to the primes push us up into the 12,000 to 13,000 range. We did a badge count in January, had 13,000. I think the number's probably a little bit lower now, but overall, the largest enterprise employer in the Tri-Cities. And then if you look at the subcontracting requirements of our primes, we subcontract, which includes small business contract as well, about $500 million per year. Which we see as an integral part of the economic foundation that we provide in the Tri-Cities, and frankly, as a hedge from an economics perspective to changes in the economy overall. And so we view that as an important part of our role and important capabilities in the Tri-Cities that may be leveraged for other activities beyond the mission of our site. Though, just to be clear, we'll be here for a while. Next slide. Most of you have seen this before. We really do have a broad and diverse stakeholder and tribal environment that we operate in every day, with a very aggressive outreach program across the board to ensure that we're building awareness, getting the facts and data of the work we do out to as broad a population as we can, as well as building relationships that are important in a mission like Hanford, because we have a complex mission, and periodically we'll be challenged, and those relationships are helpful to keep everybody focused on what's important, health and safety of workforce, as we execute the mission. But you can see from a federal, state, regional, tribal view, very complex mission. And this is a simplified view because every one of those wedges has multiple wedges inside of it that represent some of the breakdowns in each of those group areas that are important for us to continue to engage in and manage. So the Hanford Advisory Board is one aspect of our outreach. There's many, many others. And our leadership team, most of the people in this room today, spend a lot of time in all of these different areas to talk about and educate and keep people aware of the tremendous work that our team is doing to clean up the Hanford site every single day. Next, I'll go into the mission areas to talk about the 3 main mission areas. The first is the tank waste mission area. I'll start with direct feed low activity waste. Today, the tank site cesium removal system is operating. We resumed operations over this last weekend. I think it's in the 9th batch since TSCR operations began. We expect when this batch completes at the end of the month to have more than 800,000 gallons staged treated tank waste ready for the waste treatment plant next year when we're ready to start hot commissioning. Waste treatment plant, I didn't mention Matt Irwin because he's not here because he's staying at the site. We're in the middle of a cold commissioning management assessment right now done by the Department of Energy. The contractor had a cold commissioning management assessment that completed last week. And those are all part of the readiness activities to set conditions or verify conditions are set for us to start cold commissioning at the waste treatment plant, which is the introduction of the chemical hazards to the plant. The contractor CCMA went very well. There were 6 pre-starts identified as in draft. They're working the plan right now. Our DOE team will find issues for us to address or for the contractor to address as well. But I think at this point, we're very pleased with the outcome. Those assessments have gone very well, and we continue to remain on track to start cold commissioning this month. The effluent treatment facility has been down in maintenance upgrades and really system upgrades since 2022. We're working our way through a final material issue right now in one of the sumps not related to the equipment that we installed to support the direct feed low activity waste operations. We expect effluent treatment facility to start a campaign within the next 2 weeks to start demonstrating those capabilities of all those new systems. The permit state of play is we're permit complete at 77 for 77. Really appreciate the tremendous support from Washington Department of Ecology, Washington Department of Health, EPA. We're going to have a little celebration next week with our regulator partners to recognize an effort that was well over 10 years and required 500-ish permit actions with the support of over 700 people. So it's a good time to celebrate and recognize the tremendous work that everyone put into getting us to permit complete for direct feed low activity waste. Test bed initiative. We actually completed the treatment of 1,961 gallons of tank waste from SY farm, SY 101, about a week ahead of schedule. There's an analysis process going on right now that will take roughly 120 to 130 days to evaluate the constituents of that treated tank waste to ensure it meets the waste acceptance criteria for Texas and Utah repositories that are licensed and regulated. And next spring, we'll transport the 1,961 gallons to those locations to be grouted and dispositioned. And then A101 retrieval. We're over 50% of A101. That's the first tank in the 8th tank farm. Evaporator is going through some upgrades now. We expect our first campaign next spring to get the evaporator back operating again after several years of upgrades and material corrective actions. Our tank integrity program continues to do its mission, do its job very, very well. And then high level waste, we're progressing the design of the high level waste facility, doing limited construction, and that project's continuing to go very well also. I haven't seen the ecology brief today, but from a holistic negotiations perspective, we're in the process of developing the responses to comments delivered during the public comment period that ended on the 1st of September. We're executing that work with our partners, Ecology and EPA. And aspirationally, we'd like to be done with that by the end of the calendar year, but we're each going to go through an administration change. And so it's never easy to predict how long those processes will take to get things like that out the door. So we had just over 200 comments, I think. Not really so many surprises because of all the outreach we've done throughout the process. So we're confident that we'll get through the process relatively quickly and hope to get that out, if not in December, early next calendar year. And I'll answer questions later. That's the tank waste mission. Next slide is the risk reduction portfolio. So going from upper left, the waste encapsulation storage facility. If not started already this week, we expect to go into the operational acceptance testing of all the equipment that's been installed in the waste encapsulation storage facility that will begin moving those 1,936 cesium and strontium capsules from wet storage to dry. We expect to start moving the first capsule next year. And we also have the full-scale mock-up in place at the maintenance and storage facility. And they're working through all the procedure development, training, all those other activities. So what you see in the upper left is one of the large casks on our, really at the truck port, being moved around on air skids to practice moving that large cask in and out of the truck port as a part of the overall readiness activities to be ready to start moving those capsules next year. We're excited about that. K-Basin, the upper right picture, that's a beautiful picture of K-Basin in its current state, which is no longer with any water in it, fully grouted, and the risk to the Columbia River fully mitigated, which we completed in August of this year. Going down to the right, groundwater program, as you know, completed its 10th year in a row of treating 2 billion gallons per year. The 200 West Pump and Treat you see there just went through an uprate over last several months, uprating from about 2,500 gallons per minute to 3,400 gallons per minute, which will enhance our ability to accelerate the cleanup of the groundwater in the Central Plateau. And the pump and treat stations along the river continue to operate very well. Lower left is the 324 building, continuing to progress through inactivation activities. We're on track to provide the focus feasibility study to EPA this month. I know there was a brief planned for today on 324. I'll just be frank, it didn't meet my standards. I pulled it down. We'll have another opportunity to brief on 324 at a future HAB meeting. We'll be able to provide you a full update then. That's it for our risk reduction mission. Look at infrastructure and base operations, not always appreciated, but vital to our success. And that really covers water, power, sewer, roads, IT, cyber, and then from a safety and security perspective, the Hammer Training Center, the Hanford Patrol, and the support facilities through the Hanford Patrol Academy, and then Hanford Fire. You see in the upper left, our new water plant. We're approaching construction complete on the new water plant. We should complete that within the next several months, and then we'll go into a 9 to 12 month period of, I'll call it commissioning, very similar, but a little bit different, obviously on size and scale from what we're doing at the waste treatment plant. Hope to have that water plant into operation done by the end of 25, early 26. The lower left picture is one of the towers, and the helicopter was stringing basically transmission lines. That's the new North Loop that provides power to the site. Remains on track to be energized in May of 2025 in conjunction with a Columbia generating station refueling outage. And that enhances the reliability of power to the site and more specifically the waste treatment plant to ensure that power continuity is maintained to our hot melters. Roads, we continue to look at, take inputs from the Traffic Safety Committee. Most recently, we restriped the 2 South and part of 11 from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road so we could take the shoulders out of play. And Amy Bachet and the HMIS team are looking at whether, based on the revised road striping in 1 lane each direction, we can maybe increase the speed limit on the 2S and look at ways to alleviate some of the traffic on the site. So we'll continue to look at options, and our traffic safety committee is very, very active in providing recommendations on a broad range of issues and activities. And then if you look to the right, Hammer Training Center, we continue to invest in Hammer, and in fact, we increased the investment in 2024 to ensure that the center could be maintained. Hammer Steering Committee or Hammer Training Center, and with the support and advice from the Hammer Steering Committee to continue to maintain that facility to support our needs of the site going forward. And they continue to do a phenomenal job. We just had our Hammer Steering Committee in October with the national labor leaders, and really we continue to see very good support for our approach at Hanford at a national level, as not only as local. So that we really appreciate what they do. And then our Hanford Fire Department, we had 3 fires on the site, larger fires on the site this summer, but a couple hundred acres at Hanford when we have about 375,000 acres are not significant. And the fire department does a phenomenal job in controlling the fires that we have. And there were no assets that were at any risk during any of those fires that we did see. A little bit just about our outreach. You know, I had you see a wide range of activities going from really local community and Rotary and briefings on the site. We commemorated the 80th anniversary at the B reactor, and Heather Dale was our guest speaker and lead for the department there. Oregon Hanford Cleanup Board, I appreciated the opportunity to provide a site overview there in October. We continue and had a very good tour last week with a number of Nez Perce tribal council members. First time on the site, so it's really always helpful and constructive to be able to get out and see the Hanford site firsthand. Obviously, the other things we're doing, and tomorrow we're taking a leadership team out from the Inspector General for the department on a tour to continue the outreach that we have to maintain inside of the Department of Energy as well as outside. And then the right hand picture you see the first container being signed by Candace. We weren't smart enough to leave a spot for her when everybody signed it, so she had to find a good spot. But we're going to find a great place to have that container placed and preserved so that everyone that's had a part of the cleanup mission, specifically the waste treatment plant mission, that had a chance to sign that can see an example of their great work. I'll end really by talking a little bit about 2025, because that I think provides a pretty helpful, again, context for not only where we've been as a site, but the trajectory that we're on as a site team. So I'll just rattle through some of the bigger events and issues that will be, I'll say, in our rearview mirror to some extent by the time we get to the end of this upcoming calendar year. So holistic agreement will be complete, documented, and will be in execution. We will be vitrifying low activity tank waste at the waste treatment plant and all the supporting activities at the liquid effluent retention facility, the effluent treatment facility, the integrated disposal facility, and the infrastructure supporting that. Testbed initiative will have shipped that treated tank waste to the disposal sites in Texas and Utah, and I assume by the end of the year it'll be grouted and dispositioned in those licensed repositories. A101 retrieval will be complete and we'll be into the second A-Farm tank retrieval. We'll be executing evaporator campaigns that ultimately supports our ability to retrieve single shell tanks. Our new contractor will be in the role with the tank waste operations contract. We'll be transferring capsules from WESIF wet storage into dry. We'll have shovels in the ground at the environmental restoration disposal facility on Supercell 11. So construction will be in progress. We've completed the 11th year of treating 2 billion gallons of groundwater. The new North Loop will be energized. Our new water plant will be ready, if not operating, by the end of the year. And we'll have shovels in the ground moving forward with our new 200 East Fire Station construction. And continuing progress at 324, we'll be ranking up the transuranic waste mission to be able to make sure we meet our shipping requirements in 2028, and progressing the high-level waste design and construction. And that's all of the big stuff at Hanford, not to mention all the other things that happen across the site every single day. Those accomplishments would not be possible in our future without the tremendous accomplishments of our team over the last several years, safely and efficiently delivering progress that were enablers for all those things that we'll realize in 2025. And those outcomes over the last several years would not have been possible without the department contractor partnership that we focused on, or without the support of our regulatory partners, or the support of our community, or the continuing support from Congress. So you think about where we are now and the trajectory of the site going into 2025 and beyond. I would say lots of reasons to be optimistic. I will never say there won't be challenges at the Hanford site. It's a challenging cleanup. It's complex. And there's complexity in almost every dimension, but I think our focus in building the department contractor partnership, and then our focus on strengthening relationships with all of those that are interested in our mission, gives me confidence that we'll be able to weather any challenge that we have in the future and continue to deliver the great progress as we go forward. So I appreciate the time to give the update. And as always, I'll look forward to the questions when we get to that portion of our venue this morning. So thank you.
And we'll have Edward Holbrook with Ecology.
I just want to thank Brian for the remarks regarding the progress that's being made on the Hanford site. I'll just reemphasize that it's been very proud moment to see the permitting done for DF Law and some of the other facilities on the Hanford site, and seeing permitting and technical assistance and oversight turn into action on the Hanford site, and seeing some of this work move forward here. So going off the slides here, so we can go to the next slide. Next as well. So Stephanie was going to be here today, but we had a last minute conflict that came up and required her attention. So I promise I'm not that self-absorbed to announce this, but I have accepted the permanent position for the deputy program manager with the nuclear waste program. Next slide. All right, so happy to say that our PI staff, we're fully staffed within the PI department and re-engaging with events around the Tri-Cities and throughout the state. You can see here a few of the events that we've attended so far. Some of the upcoming events that we have, Rivers Edge High School Fall Expo, another Let's Talk About Hanford event. Really look forward to those. Those are really great. Jefferson Elementary Science Night, and the Nez Perce STEM Fair. If you have any interest in having Ecology come out to an event or fair or anything like that, please contact us at hanford@ecy.wa.gov. Next slide. All right, so moving on to tri-party agreement negotiations. So we talked about this a few times now with the holistic agreement. We've completed the public comment period, and as Brian had mentioned, the agencies are working diligently to draft responses to the comments received, and we hope to get that done very shortly here. On top of that, we had a consultation with the Yakima Nation in September, and then the Nez Perce in October as well. We will be responding to the consultations and the letters we received from those separately from the public comments that we received as well. Next slide. So tri-party agreement, other negotiations that are going on. So we've been working with Department of Energy and EPA on the M15, M16, and M85 milestones. We've been doing so since the beginning of 2024. We're looking forward to wrapping those up here shortly as well. Next slide. One update here for tank T101. If folks recall, back in August, Department of Energy notified Ecology and declared T101 an assumed leaking tank that is likely actively leaking. We continue to engage with Department of Energy on the response actions necessary for T101, and hope to have a resolution here soon on how we're going to approach T101. Next slide. So we continue to conduct oversight on the Hanford site. Here's a number of inspections that we have completed the reports on and have issued for the Hanford site, to include B plant, Purex tanks, TK40 closure, 242A evaporator, Hexone storage and treatment facility. Next slide. So on top of the reports that we have issued at this point for the compliance inspections, during this same time frame, we've conducted inspections at Energy Northwest Columbia Generating Station, Low Activity Waste Pretreatment System, liquid effluent retention facility and the effluent treatment facility, plutonium uranium extraction facility, also known as Purex, central waste complex, waste receiving and processing facility, and the single shell tanks as well. So upcoming public comment periods and for public involvement. So we're currently going through the class 2 modification for the tank side cesium removal mechanical connection issues. Department of Energy held their public meeting last week, and we had some of our ecology folks attend that meeting as well. We also have the tri-party agreement public involvement survey, the class 2 modification for the low activity waste vitrification facility to add an existing storage capability within some of the existing rooms within that facility. And then also the draft renewal of Permafix Northwest dangerous waste permit coming up here soon. We look forward to the engagement from the public on these and many more permitting actions and that we'll be completing here in the near future. So with that said, updates on the Hanford site-wide renewal. We continue to make progress on the Hanford site-wide renewal. If you look at the numbers down there, we have 33 unit groups complete. That is a bigger number than we had last time here. So we continue to work with Department of Energy on the unit groups that remain incomplete at this point, and look forward to finalizing those and getting those into permit production here soon and getting this permit out for public comment in 2025. Okay, with that, I'll hand it over to EPA.
Mr. Enan.
Good morning and welcome, and it's good to be here. Brian, again, the congratulations to the work that your team continues to do and do well. Hanford's complex and you've got a skilled workforce, so we very much appreciate that. So we're going to try and do a little bit better job of actually having presentations for y'all. Again, I'm Dave Enan. Go to the next slide, please. Again, for particularly thinking of new members, EPA's primary mission, of course, is protect human health and the environment, and that's implemented in a variety of programs: clean water, clean air. There's a whole list here. There's the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, or CERCLA, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. All of those, emergency response, and I'm not going to go through them all. They're all here, and you can see those. Obviously, here at Hanford, our primary role and our focus is on the CERCLA work. Next slide, please. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C. We're divided into 10 regions. You can see that on the map here. We're obviously Region 10, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. Our regional headquarters is in Seattle. Again, next slide, please. Within EPA Region 10, we've got a regional administrator, a political appointee. The next level down from that is our Superfund and Emergency Management Division. Next level below that is a remedial cleanup branch. That's for all of the CERCLA cleanup sites. And there are 5 sections within that in the region. Our region is Site Cleanup Section 4, or our unit, our group, and that's for all federal facilities. Next slide, please. So Laura Bulow is the section manager for all of the federal facilities. I'm the senior RPM for DOE sites for Region 10, so I've got Hanford and INL. So that's why you see me, and I'm also the right party agreement lead. You see a lot of Roberto. He's our primary HAB interface. And we've got the 3 additional RPMs right now. Cass happens to be here in person today. Again, Laura's the supervisor. She's got 13 RPMs that work for her. We're in the Hanford project office here in Richland. Other people that are involved, Michelle Mullen is our RECRA senior policy advisor. So she's in a different division, but she does a lot of the Hanford work. So like she's been the primary interface on the holistic negotiations and the tank waste mission. Jim McCauley in our air and radiation division, and then Nick Vidargis is our lead attorney for Hanford. Next, please. So again, EPA and CERCLA, because that's where I spend most of our time. CERCLA is also known as Superfund, and that comes from the original focus of CERCLA, of course, was polluter pays. They didn't want the taxpayer to have to pay for everything. So there was a tax on petroleum and hazardous chemicals, and that created this trust fund or a super fund. Hence that's why we're called that. The implementing regulations are the National Contingency Plan. That trust fund lapsed in the mid to late 90s and was reinstated in 22. And again, this is to address cleanups with, sites uncontrolled hazardous substance releases. And there's a variety of authorities there. And I can answer questions if folks like, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time with those. And, one thing I will say about the super fund, the trust fund, is that's for non-federal sites. So that's for private sites. So that cannot be spent at a federal facility like here at Hanford. With the one sort of exception is that for like our salaries, our involvement is paid through that. Next slide, please. Again, there's 3 types of Superfund sites. Your private sites, that's what most of them are. You have, and those are paid for by the PRPs, the responsible parties. You've got fund lead, which is the government is paying, and then there's federal facility sites, and that's Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and in that regard, they are the lead agency as well. And of course, Hanford is a federal facility. Next slide, please. Our priorities here at Hanford, obviously, it's protection, completion of cleanup at the river corridor. It's the groundwater restoration. We've got to get their sites in the Central Plateau still needing characterization. We've got TPA schedules and milestones, and heard about the negotiations that we're getting into for the major milestones 15, 16, and 85. Public involvement is clearly a priority because, the more information the decision makers have from variety of partners, the better off the decisions are. And obviously, we try and do our part to support the national initiatives, whether they be climate change, environmental justice, or whatever the program directions we get from the administrations. Next slide, please. Again, more narrowing down. Brian's picture showed K-Basin when it was finished. This was when it was still being topped off. Again, that's an important achievement, and really appreciate that. I want to recognize that. The 130 KE2, that was the location of a former oil storage that fed the boiler. There were leaks and releases, and got to be considerably larger than anybody was expecting. The proposed plan for the final actions at K is it's out for agency review. Again, hoping to have the public comment next spring, similar for 100N. 100K is on track to meet its milestones by the end of fiscal 25. There's some milestones that were under based on the interim decision that cleaning up it's called it phase 2. And the phases are designed in the work plan, but those should be done by the end of fiscal 25. Next slide, please. So this is some demolition work that was added 100K. This is the 117K West filter that supported the, the air went through this filter building before going up the stack. And the stack is currently in place, and you can see its shadow there on the right-hand picture. Next slide, please. In the 300 area, we are working on with the Department of Energy on the focused feasibility study and working towards that ROD amendment. Brian mentioned those. As part of that process, we will be offering tribal consultation and seek public comment. I want to highlight that, you've heard this from the department before, but revisiting the approach to remediating 300-296 ensures that we get a thorough cleanup, that we protect the workers, the public, and the environment. And again, you heard it before, but the city of Richland, 1,850 feet away, P&L main campus is a mile away, and you've got public residences within a mile and a half. So it's an important thing to keep focused on. And again, we expect to be in public comment spring, summertime. Next slide, please. The 61811, that is the landfill that is adjacent to the parking lot at Energy Northwest. We've got milestones for the design of that remediation coming in the next 5 years. These pictures are from 61810, which was in across the road and down a little bit. It's not going to be exact, but some of these same operations are going to be will likely happen for 61811. But again, the design is not complete. Next slide, please. And the Central Plateau. Brian mentioned the ERDF Supercell 11. The design's complete. They're going to be putting shovels in the ground. That's really good news. That'll ensure the capacity for cleanup in the future, because obviously if we don't have a place to put the waste, we can't clean up. The 200 area pump and treat had a goal of pumping 3,500 gallons per minute. They met that goal. We've got continued characterization that is happening at the operable units listed there. I think that's next slide, please. And again, I want to highlight our, how important public involvement is to the decisions we make, and messaging and getting the word out. Obviously, the advisory board plays a big role. Public outreach, got agency liaisons and collaboration with the department to get outreach materials, and then the stakeholder engagement with the various stakeholders, and also with the tribal nations and other parties. And we're trying to be able to increase our capacity to meet with ecology and energy have had good programs for getting to external groups, and we're trying to increase our capacity there too. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go to board questions. As a reminder, if you would like to enter queue, you can take your name tent in the room, flip it to its side. And if you are in the corner, you may want to add a little flourish to it to make sure you're detected. If you are online, you can raise your hand in Teams or enter a note into chat. We're going to lead with with Tom, and I'll figure it out from there.
Thank you for the updates. A lot of good work happening, and it's good to see. Question on sort of HAB engagement in the near future. Seems like we're coming close to a CERCLA 5-year review, and just wondering if the HAB is going to be engaged early in that process, or how that's going to how the planning for that's going to work.
So, yeah, I think the next review will be due in 27. So probably won't actually be getting into it in any detail until late in 25. But yeah, I think there's an opportunity to share things as we go. I'm not expecting a lot of surprises though.
And to Richard.
I guess my question is, well, reflection, but to ecology. I wouldn't be proud of a 20,000 page permit. That's 40 reams of paper. That is totally unmanageable. And I'll repeat it. You need to go on a word diet. This is it is just incredible. I mean, I've been in the environmental compliance field for years. It's beyond my belief that this can operate under that permit. And so it is incredible. I understand the basis of it. I've been involved in permits in other states. I've written permits in other states. You have to reflect and think about reality. Thank you.
I appreciate your comment. I will say that the Hanford site is an unprecedented TSD facility that has over 50 some odd unit groups associated with it.
So was Rocky Flats. Thank you.
Yep. So I appreciate your comment and look forward to any public comments when we get that out for public comment in 2025. Thanks.
We'll have Ed, Chris, and then Pam. Go ahead, Ed.
So, Mr. Vance, one thing I'd like to do is thank your organization and your contracting organizations for the site tour last month. It was very well done. Thank you very much for your time and energy putting that together. That said, if you don't mind, I have a technical question to dive into concerning your upcoming vitrification renewal or review that's going on. And if you look at the past history of vitrification processes used throughout the world, one of the main issues is the precipitation of additives within the matrix that fall out after the attempts to do the vitrification. What are you doing to address that? And a good answer could be nothing. But what are you doing to ensure that interstitial matrix is being maintained during the vitrification process?
Well, that's a great question. If I was like glass scientist, I'd be able to give you a great answer. I don't know at this point. If that's probably a great question you could provide through the HAP process, we'll provide a different avenue for an expert to come in and give you that answer.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have Chris, then Pam.
You indicated, Dave, that recently the 200 West Pump and Treat has been able to reach 3,500 gallons per minute flowing through the system. So I wonder, Brian, is there an increased performance goal for CPCCO to go well beyond 2 billion gallons per year, given the increased flow through the 200 West Pump and Treat? Like closer to 3 billion gallons, maybe?
What we're trying to do with CPCCO is shift from gallons treated to waste removal or mass removal from the aquifer. So there's, we don't want, we're really trying to drive the contractor to consider how do we optimize the well structure, the well network. Not always about increasing capacity if you're just pumping relatively clean water through the process. It's really about making sure that we put the wells in the right location and pull the mass, the contaminants out of the ground. So the additional capacity gives us the capability to enhance that process. It equates to about 500 million gallons more per year if you from 2,500 gallons to 3,400 gallons per minute. So we'll look to optimize that. Whether we go much higher in the gallons treated is probably not the focus. It's really more about making sure that the mass removal is there. So it just provides us a little more capacity and flexibility in the Central Plateau. So I wouldn't say there's a direct correlation to a dramatic increase in the number of gallons treated versus with the uprate.
Pam, Mia, then Rob. To you, Pam.
Thank you. I was just overwhelmed with the presentation. It's so amazing to see what has been done and what is being done. I'm particularly excited about the progress with WESF in terms of risk to the region. I'm thrilled that you guys are going to be removing capsules next year. The picture of Key West, amazing. And I also want to thank you all for the tour that we went on. I never thought I'd be in law again, and to stand and look at the top of the melters. I was there for groundbreaking. That was a long time ago. So to see that facility being ready for operation is just really exciting. I have one question regarding the holistic agreement. I'm wondering, given there was litigation that involved a federal judge years ago, do you have to go back to the federal judge for any approval for what you've come up with?
Yeah, one of the elements of the consent decree or the agreement is a revised consent decree document. And yeah, we'll take that back when ecology and EPA or when ecology and the department align on the final verbiage in that agreement. We'll submit it to the court. Usually when there's alignment, it's more of a pro forma process more than anything that's a challenge.
Okay, thank you all.
Mia, then Rob. To you, Mia.
Hi, yeah, my question is also related to the holistic negotiations. So I know that, in the agreement, there was a date by the end of this year to make a decision about the 22 tanks. So I'm curious about that date specifically. I know that there were various analyses that needed to be done, a business case analysis, NEPA analysis, WEIR analysis. Have any of those been started, or are you waiting to do response to comments, finalize the agreement, and then start those? And so can you give us any better sense of a timeline for when the finalized agreement and response to comments will be released?
Well, the processes have all started already for those documents, the supplemental analysis and the NEPA documents. We will work with EPA and ecology to revise that date based on the public comment inputs and other elements that we may discuss as a part of evaluating the public comments. So it's premature to say when I think a decision will be made on that. But I think we agree that it won't be December of this year. It'll be a future date, and we'll decide that together as we go through that process.
Sorry, just one follow-up. When you issue the response to comments, will the finalized document, the finalized settlement agreement come out at the same time, or will that come out later?
I looked to my lawyer for the answer, and he said later.
Okay, and to Rob.
Thanks for the presentations. The main concerning thing that I have about the entire process here is the fact that we're taking so long. The decisions take so long to get made. It's frustrating and it costs more in the long run. At some point, because our radioactive materials are decaying, the cost of environmental cleanup is going to be greater than the risk that we're accepting for the land and for the people. So how are we trying to speed up this process, or are we? Holistic negotiations that take 4 years or 3.5 years seems kind of just seems kind of silly that we had that much to discuss and that much to get an agreement. Do we have too many cooks in our kitchen? Do we not have a leader? I mean, I trust, Brian, I've mentioned it before to you over and over. I think you got a great organization there, but we need to speed it up. Here it is, 63 billion dollars spent on the project so far, and our high level waste, and doesn't really look like it's changed at all. So I'd just like to see efforts to be to speed it up somehow. And I don't know, and I know we the public are part of the problem because we want to see everything, we want to know everything, we want to touch it, feel it, and participate in it. But I have to resist, a lot of kind of going technical. But the thing is it just takes so darn long to get decisions and get things going. And we have so many reasons to, we'll pause this because of this, and we'll pause this. Can we speed it up? That's the big question is, can we speed it up?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer without going into lots of issues relative to political play and all those other elements of how we do business. From my perspective, and based on what we can control as a department contractor team, as a department with our regulatory environment, our regulatory partners, is deliver safe, efficient, predictable progress and enhance our ability as a team through our performance to gain the credibility that allows us to have the relationships that supports faster decision making. Because when there's broader support and confidence and trust, decisions tend to be made faster and probably better. And so our within what we can control, our focus is on delivery performance. Make sure we're progressing the mission well. People see the value of our work, see us able to, with all the complexities, still deliver that progress. And that strategically makes it easier for those next decisions. Strategically, it also takes away some of the risks that sometimes drove the site, right? I'd rather manage the site than the site manage me. And so when we can stay ahead of the site, not have issues like a Purex tunnel partial collapse, because we've already looked at all the options for all the situations that could be like that and remediated them on our time, then we'll see those accelerations. When we can get the test bed initiative, get low activity waste that's treated, grouted, that opens up opportunities for us to accelerate in the ways that the agreement framed in the 22 tanks and the West Farms later in the decade. So I won't dispute the fact that it's been a little bit of a slow start for the cleanup. But I think within the last several years and with the partnership approach that we've brought, not only internal to the department and our contractors, but with our regulatory partners, we're going to see some accelerations. And success breeds success. We just got to stick with it. And I think we'll start to see some improvements in cycle times, improvements in the longevity, or making the mission a little bit shorter, and finding ways at times for technology to help. Though there's no panacea in technology. I mean, everybody thinks there is. I get questions about, how are we applying AI on the site? There's some business stuff that we can do in AI, but cleaning up tank waste or knocking down buildings or remediating soil, there's not a lot of AI. It's marginal benefits, if that. So this is really about staying the course on a plan, executing that plan well, which creates more opportunities, and stay in the course, administration. So we're not continually being driven out of the plan I think that's the path to what you're talking about. We would all like to see this go faster. But we also know it's important to maintain the public awareness and maintain engagement and get perspectives in case we miss something. All those things do take time, but I'm optimistic that we'll be able to continue to accelerate them. It's not going to be a revolutionary increase in pace, but evolutionary, steady increases in pace are going to be what we're about. And that creates the opportunity for more acceleration. And that's all we can do within the time we each have at the site.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have another question from Richard and then go to Larry.
I was just going to follow up on Rob's comment. I was reflecting back on the WESF, and I just reflect back that WESF capsule movement is an outcome of what happened at Fukushima in 2011. And that's when the HSEP brought the issue forward to DOE relative to concerns of the basin. And so that means 13 years, and we're about to finally move the capsules, which means they've decayed a third of a half-life. So it you know, as especially for new members, nothing happens quickly at Hanford. But I appreciate your comment that we have to keep working at doing things better, faster, without a lot of the baggage. And that's why I look to supporting doing some of the actions under CERCLA, because CERCLA can definitely streamline. That's what it's designed for. Doing everything under RECRA, and it consolidates all those issues into one spot. So possibly get things done faster under a CERCLA action memo. Thank you.
And then to Larry.
Actually, my question and comment is to all three of the tri-party participants. As other members in HAB, I'm frustrated with speed of action. I'm frustrated with the length of the tri-party agreement. I try to read 500 pages a week, and I haven't even dented it. A half a century ago, when I was working on my thesis, I wanted to do some work on areas, and my advisor likely said analysis to paralysis, which I think is applicable to all three of these parties. I'd like to ask a specific question about that and see if we can get a specific answer. And that is that Mr. Holbrook brought up a T101 leak, and we know how long that's been going. And he said there was ongoing discussions, and there was delays. And I'd like to know some specifics about what the discussions are and why the delays, and what action can be taken now and what action can't be taken now.
Yeah, so
all
I
three
can
parties.
answer part of that here. So with T101, we're looking specifically at the actions that we took under B109 and T111 and seeing how those actions in particular can support the T101 response. As I mentioned before, I think we're really close with Department of Energy in finding a resolution and a path forward to this, and look forward to an announcement here in the near future.
All right, are there any other questions at the table or online?
Yeah, one more.
Go ahead, Rob.
If you don't mind. If you don't mind. Okay, I have, and people know that I used to work on the WTP project as a lead materials engineer, selecting all the materials for the pre-treat facilities. I find that I find in the system plans that we have, and of the 6 options with their sub options, not one of them says that we're going to retool pre-treat. We have like $6 billion of investment Can we not capture that and use it? Here we're talking in system plan about brand new high-level waste pretreatment. Well, what are you gonna, I can't fathom how we could throw what we have in the pretreatment facility. Over 100 vessels landed, tons of black cells for extra safety. We got piping in the ground. We've got feed lines all over. The question is why can't we list in one of our options how to capture that money that we just are going to waste if we don't use it? That is it's hurtful to me to see that go to waste. Okay. And even to the point where in the EMF facility, which is the effluent management facility for the LAW, it cannibalized part of the pretreatment facility for that evaporator. So now you have one of the highest performing titanium evaporators boiling water. You know, I just don't want to see that to happen to all the work that's gone in there, and it's all quality work. I guess that's my disappointment. And maybe if somebody wants to address it, that's in our back pocket, we're going to do something. I don't know, but it's a big waste if we decide to throw that away.
I'll just say it'll be a decision to be made later.
We're about 15 minutes from our public comment hard stop. So I'd also like to open this up to questions from our attending alternates, either attending online or hiding in the gallery. Any other questions altogether? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. And I appreciate the tours out there and the things we're doing, and that we, once started, half done, and we're kind of getting to that point a little bit. But you talked about, even the comment period and getting the comments back with the administration change. And of course, that's not, the federal administration, it's also the state. And, so there's a lot of moving parts. We've lived through, the current federal administration, in 16 and what's gone on in between. But there's always that danger there. And I feel like the HAB board needs to sometimes support the tri-party folks, because, the biggest knee jerk can be, what comes down from the top, right? That can drive as much as what goes on as the work here. So how much do you expect it to change? And I don't know, whether you have a lot of influence over it. You can only do what you can do, but how much do you expect or worry that things could change at the state or federal level?
Well, if I could answer that, I would probably not be sitting here. It's hard to say. I mean, what my job is to make sure that as we conduct transition briefings to those that are new to the administration, maybe new to the Department of Energy, I give them the confidence that we have a good course that we're on, that we have made tremendous progress. And, this literally is my 7th year today in the seat at one of the managers. I took over ORP on the 6th of November on 2017. I think I broke a mirror on the 5th of November. So I'm in my 7th year of, luck. But regardless of that, the reality is there's always political change that occurs every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years. My job, as I see it, is to advocate for the course we're on, because it's a smart course. We're demonstrating success at delivering it, and give the new administration the chance to have wins on our current course during their time in the seat, and leave us alone to progress the mission. That's really what I would see it. So, but how much influence I can have, it's impossible to tell. I'd like to believe that we started this journey, at least I did, in the first Trump administration. Not that that matters at all, because I'm a federal employee and I don't care who's sitting in the White House. Doesn't matter. My job is to clean up the Hanford site, regardless of who's sitting there. Doesn't matter who's the secretary. Doesn't matter who's sitting in Olympia. that job doesn't change. My job is to make sure that they all see the value of our work, see the progress we're making, and give us the support to continue to progress the mission on behalf of the folks that live in the Tri-Cities in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, thanks. Ecology, is that kind of the same, stance you got to take, or things can move there quicker here?
Yeah, so similar to what Brian had said, I think our mission stays the same, right? In the last 3 years of working for ecology as a section manager and as a deputy, we have made significant progress on modifications to the current Hanford site-wide permit, issuances of RD&D permits that support TBI, for example. And, our mission over the next 12 months, 4 years, whatever time frame you want to put it at, is to complete these actions, issue these permits, and see the fruition of that on the Hanford site and the actions that they're taking. And we continue to remain steadfast in that work, as well as what we're doing with the holistic agreement, finalizing the response to comments for that, and updating the consent decree and the TPA to ensure that those plans that Department of Energy and EPA and Ecology have made continue to move forward, regardless of changes of administrations at the state level or the federal level.
We have another question from Chris.
One way in which we can support the tri-party agencies is each year we put out an advice on what we as a board and what our constituencies feel is the most important work that DOE and the tri-party agencies can do 2 years down the road. It gets it into the budget cycle. So, and we send this to Washington Congressional Committee, Washington Congressional senators and representatives, Oregon, DOE headquarters, a wide range of people. And I think it benefits DOE and the tri-party agencies to have this independent advice going up on what the public feels that DOE, the most important work that DOE can do 2 years down the road. And I think that kind of thing perhaps helps with getting the funding that DOE and the tri-party agencies would like to see. So this is a pitch for the IM team. Tomorrow at 9 in this room, the IM team has a kickoff meeting on advice for the most important work priorities that we feel that DOE should do. It's a kickoff meeting tomorrow here at 9 to 10. But this is one way in which we can support DOE. And I think especially coming into a year where there is new administration, where there's likely to be a new Secretary of Department of Energy and possibly the managers below that secretary. This is very timely to get that advice up to those people from independent source and our constituencies. So that's just one thing we can do, and I want to put in a pitch. So if you'd like to be on the IM team, please sign up.
And even without being on the IM team, everyone's invited to join and sit in. If you're attending online, you can request an invitation by emailing hab@slind.net. That is HAB@slind.net. Are there any other questions for our presenters?
Want to announce that right after his IM meeting is the meeting on the system plan. So.
All right. I don't see any other questions in the room, online, in the gallery. And to double check, last time I heard there was no public comment signups. Is that still the case? That is still the case. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment in the room or online that did not sign up? If you're in Teams, you can raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can step up to the mic. All right. I think that's it. We're about 15 minutes ahead of schedule. Take an early break or move up to 15 minutes. Take an early break, returning at 10:45. Taking a break and returning at 10:45. Thank you, everyone. Alright, so our next item is a round robin discussion where every member will have a chance to answer the question of the day. That question is, what is the one thing you would really like to know about Hanford cleanup? And I think we will go around the table. Let's start with Kevin.
I actually don't have any questions at this point in time. This is my second meeting. I'm still trying to absorb all the information. I've been reading some books and I'm going to stop by the bookstore outside of Richland. I went on the B reactor tour last week and that was fascinating. So again, I'm trying to get up to speed and this is an incredibly smart group of people. So thank you.
And going around the table, the next one would be Pam.
Sorry, what do you want me to say?
Sorry. The round robin question for today is, what is the one thing you would really like to know about Hanford cleanup?
Oh, only one. Come back to me.
Yeah, and I will note you always have the opportunity to pass. Chris.
This is a follow-on to what Rob commented on a little earlier. But the one thing I'd really like to know right now is what is the schedule or time frame in the process for deciding how supplemental waste is going to be either grouted on site or transported as a liquid and grouted off site? What's the schedule, timeline, and process for deciding those types of things?
Okay. Thank you. Spencer.
Great, thank you. For like many, still trying to learn what this is all about. I've grown up in the Tri-Cities area most of my life, and always knew Hanford was out here, but this is all kind of a new world for me, and appreciate the patience and the tour and all the education that everyone's given. I guess for me, it's probably just kind of better understanding kind of the overall timeline of the mission. I mean, are we talking these kind of annual or 5-year increments or whatever it is, but long term, what does this really look like and how long do we expect this to kind of go on?
And Richard?
Well, I'm not quite sure there's anything that I really want to know about Hanford cleanup because I've been involved in Hanford since 1980. And I know where all the skeletons are buried out there. I'd like to express something, especially for the new members here, to know that we can make a difference. I brought up the aspects of the waste encapsulation capsules. That was something brought by HAB to DOE as identified from some. I mean, obviously we've had change in people that were knowledgeable, but of technical issues, but they brought that issue up and it took quite a while to get them to get on board. Other things that came up over the years was beryllium awareness. As a beryllium sensitized individual, that it was important to me, but that happened before I got on the HAB. Every once in a while, the agencies ask for help as a sounding board for the community, and we eventually got to the point where we answered EPA's ask for getting support for macro encapsulation inside of ERDF rather than hanging on the edge out midair of a tank pump that was screaming at 5-6 R. In all the issues over the years of safety culture, these are things that we have brought forward as concerns that eventually DOE or the agencies have addressed. So as new members, I just wanted to say that we have, while it looks like we're just a sounding board absorbing information, we can actually affect change. So
Thank you. Going to Aaron.
I don't know if it's necessarily about cleanup but more the one Hanford. We have basically all of our training go through the Hammer facility, except for the VIT plant, which has its own lock and tag, has its own RadCon training. Why don't we utilize Hammer for that site as well?
And Rob?
I guess I'll pass right now and come back to me in a minute. Thank you.
All right, going to Matthew.
In regards to cleanup, I'm really curious on how the holistic negotiations and some of the framework there will be applied to the cleanup, because there's different paths that could be taken with different wastes. And it's going to be interesting to see how that is carried out and how our work on the HAB can assist that.
And going to Kathy. Pass, and we'll go to Susan.
I'm interested in the future, current and future turning over of portions of the site to the local communities. I mean, there's been conversation over the decades of, putting bike paths in and opening up the property. So I'm kind of interested in where are we today with that planning. I know Gary Peterson used to be in charge of driving a lot of that, but he's passed away. But it's just, I'm just curious, where are we going? Where are we today and where are we going? This kind of dovetails into probably long-term stewardship and working with the tribes and to opening up portions of the property.
Go ahead, Mia.
Yeah, my question is kind of similar to what Susan raised. I'm curious how decisions that we're going to be making today, especially with this administration change and what changes will come with that for Hanford cleanup, how that will impact future generations and what the site will look like when cleanup is deemed to be complete. I would love to be able to see that to have a better idea, but those are some of the things that I'm thinking about.
Go ahead.
Gosh, I'm not really sure. I have all kinds of questions, but they actually pertain to like what I do every day. I kind of live and breathe cleanup at Hanford the past 38 years. So, like I said, I don't have any like big questions. I don't think that could be answered here.
Jim.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Mia and Susan were saying as well. Winix Red Elk from the C2IR gave a presentation the other day on first foods and things that they were able to do out at Hanford, and talked about going to Rattlesnake Mountain and picking some first foods and doing these things. And I asked her, are the tribes able to take over some of the reservation out there that's not hazardous, if you might. And she said, they've been welcomed on there, but it's still they have to go through the process to go to these places. And I think the public, looking in as they start to see, the beauty of this coming back a little bit too. That plays into the mission, right? You're cleaning it up over here, but you're also showing some of the positive things that are happening over here. But additionally, I'm, I know just enough to be dangerous, but the high level waste, right? We're still trying to get rid of the gloves and these kind of things, and the low level waste, and we got some of these things. Where are we at on the high level waste, and in the process of finding a final resting place for it, right? I mean, the Tisker stuff, we're going to move there and leave on site, and some of these things. So I'm just curious. And the pre-treatment plant, right? Are they considering retrofitting it, doing a cost analysis, maybe building a new one? Is it just not something that's going to happen? I'm throwing too many questions at you, but the other challenge, and this goes to EPA a little bit, is when they talk about the environmental justice piece, and ecology does, or the states do, and even locally we talk about environmental justice, and I worry sometimes it gets lip service, and it functionally doesn't happen. As an example, EPA listed the Yakima Valley as an environmental justice community, and it brought more resources to bear, right? And they were able to really get in there and do some things. And so I think we need to, whether it's just the outreach to the environmental justice folks, or folks that heretofore haven't been at the table, even if we don't get them to the table, maybe we need to step in and go to a different level, at least on their behalf. So these are just some thoughts. Thank you.
All right. Jumping over to Tom.
I've got one really little thing that I want to really know about Hanford. I don't think I ever will. Maybe my great grandkids will. I want to know the degree and extent of contamination in the subsurface. The degree and extent of contamination in the subsurface. I don't think we'll ever know really how much contamination is there, but the sooner we start looking, the sooner we'll find it. So characterization.
And to Charles.
Well, what I'm interested in is, let me read my note here. There's a tremendous amount of technical knowledge garnered over the last 30 plus years of cleanup. This is a repository of knowledge. And my question is, how is this knowledge curated and also made available to not just the general public, but well, for other sites that need cleanup, and not just in North America? So it's sort of a question. My question is something like, how can this knowledge be used worldwide? Who's in charge of that? Keeping track of that? That's my question.
Brian.
So some of you know I'm a 30-year veteran of Hanford. And throughout the years, my question has always been why we are not grouting our very old single shell tanks. And I know it can be complex, but the state and the ecology has always taken the hit on that question and just dropped at that. But I know in the big scheme of things, it's probably more complicated than I know. But in a nutshell, I'd like to know why we're not grouting, especially assumed leakers on the spot.
Ed.
Well, and you have to forgive me if I'm ignorant on this particular question, but it's one that when I worked in decommissioning and cleanup commercially, we always had this vision in mind that said, this is when we're done. This is when the regulators put it in the file, they dust their hands and walk away. No more actions from their part, the need for cleanup. So what is the ultimate? And I read these mission statements and I go, well, really, that's not the mission. The mission is the final cleanup. Ecology's done, the state's done, DOE's done, and we just walk away. And what does that look like? What's the final, not just the interim finals as they go around? And maybe it's defined out there, but I don't know where it's at. You know, when you have the stack of papers said, yep, the site's clean, we're all done, thank you very much, we all walk away. What does that look like? Thank you.
And last one at the table is Larry.
The disadvantage of being last is that everybody else used my ideas. I first agreed with Chris. I would like to know more about the transport of low active and toxic materials. And it would be good to hear from like a representative of the Department of Transportation to see what their feelings are regarding these subjects. And I'm uncomfortable with grout anyway. I'm especially uncomfortable with each subcontractor having their own secret formula for grout. And I've read in so many reports that a universal grout is impossible, that the one thing that Hanford has that its advantage is that most, if not all, of the liquid material is basic or has been made basic, but different constituents of that require different grout, and I'm so uncomfortable with that piece of it. And it's almost two things, but I'd try to relate them. The other is that there's been facilities in other, maybe DOE facilities, but at least worldwide and scientific papers about such things as vitrification. And it seems to me that Hanford has to invent its own, from starting at the ground that they're proposing to put it on. And there's ideas, maybe not all. I'm sure that one size does not fit more than just one person, but you could start with a basic engineering or something, and work from there and shorten the process. And I would just dearly love to see the cleanup process at Hanford shortened. I just don't think tanks are going to last 100 years. And so that's actually more than one thing, and I apologize for that. But
All right, so we've gone around the table in the room. And we're now going to go around our extended virtual table and then give everyone that passed another chance to go. We'll start with, looks like Sean has moved to the virtual side. What is the one thing you would like to know about Hanford Cleanup?
I did. I moved to virtual. I moved here because my husband is a nuclear engineer. So I kind of been listening from a different, with a different ear.
I see your microphone is on, but we're not hearing anything. Dave,
Oh.
can you check on that?
Can you hear me now?
We'll have to check. We'll have to check back in with you. Sorry about that. Oh,
Okay, sorry.
there we go.
Okay, perfect. I was saying that I did have to move to virtual, but I wanted to say that I actually am a transplant to Tri-Cities because my husband is a nuclear engineer out at the site. And I've been through several contractors with since we've been here. And I just had a concern for the definition of what cleanup is. I agree with one of the other board members about defining what cleanup is, and also what type of resources are available for the residents who have been affected by some of the cleanup and processes.
Thank you, Shanae. And next one at our virtual table is Christy. What is the one thing you would like to know about Hanford Cleanup?
All right. I guess we were thinking more of what is the contingency plan or plan B if the projected waste disposal outlined in the TPA is not achieved? And if the issue with like high level waste vitrification cannot be achieved, what are the other options? And the repository. We have no repository yet. So where does that waste go? Thank you.
And next one is Larry Haler. Are you available to speak? We'll come back to him. Michelle Holt, what is the one thing you would like to know about Hanford cleanup?
I do not have a specific burning question currently.
All right. How about you, Rose?
You caught me off guard. I figured you'd go to Lorraine first. For
Right, that's you.
recommendation. Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. I guess what I'd really like to know about Hanford cleanup is how the cleanup will impact the availability of resources to Yakima Nation. Yakima Nation ceded lands, those resources are important. Cultural resources, environmental resources are important to Yakima Nation. And will the cleanup, how will that allow for Yakima Nation's ability to return to these lands and to be able to utilize treaty resources? That would be my big thing. Thank you.
Next down the list would be Amber. What is the one thing you'd like to know about Hanford cleanup?
Sorry, just getting myself off of mute there. You know, there's many things. So I was thinking about just all the work we do to try and engage with the community. And I'm going to kind of flip the question. I think it would be great to know, it would be great for the HAB to know what other community members would like to know about Hanford cleanup. So I'm just kind of flipping the script a little bit, because I think that would help us as the HAB, be able to get more information and be more effective in community outreach. So that's my input.
All right, moving back up to the list, the ones I missed. Well, Lorraine, what is the one thing you'd like to know about Hanford cleanup?
Yes, thank you. From my perspective, one thing I'd like to know about Hanford cleanup is where they're going to transport, with all the new energy coming in and the just looking forward to how they're going to process what's already here. I mean, it's the most contaminated site in the nation, and we know that it's not going to be cleaned up to the standards that would make it livable there, in some of the areas. But I'm just wondering what they're going to do with the waste. And, we do need a repository somewhere. So that's what I'd like to know.
Thank you. And Kermit, how about you? All right. So we had a few people pass the first time around. I did want to give them another chance to go. Pam, do you have any questions about Hanford cleanup?
Yep, a couple. So we heard today that there's potential for true waste to be shipped off the Hanford site in 2028. I've known that there are Carlsbad staff people here working on that. I'd love to have a presentation to the HAB about that. I agree with Rob about the assets in the pretreatment building. A lot of money was spent designing special tanks and building them, and hopefully they're going to be used. And I'm worried about remediation at 61811 impacting the operation of Energy Northwest. I'm stunned that it's going forward at this point in time. So I'm very interested to hear how they will avoid impacting operations, because there was a lot of airborne from 61810 that went across the highway. And if that happens at 11, you're going to destroy a nuclear power plant. Thank you.
Rob.
Yes. Um, First of all, let me just brief people. They want to know how long this is going to take. Well, scenario 5 takes it out to 2136. So long after we're all gone, they're still cleaning the site. That's why it's really important that we do it now. There's just so many other things about it. First of all, wanted to know about glass. Glass is ordered by Congress. Congress said that we have to go and find a geologic disposal site to take the glass from a high level waste. Okay, and so just so people know, in this next, I think 2 weeks, there's going to be a re-meeting, a national re-meeting of trying to reactivate and help us guide us into our high level waste disposal facility. And I would encourage people, if they want to get on that phone call or that thing, you know, it was published already in some emails. The other thing about grout is that it's very important for us to know that what we need to do is immobilize the waste before we can dispose of it. Grout is a very effective immobilization tool, just as glass is. However, because of the performance requirements of glass, only low-level waste can be grouted. High-level waste cannot be grouted. Okay, so I just put those things out there. The burning question, there's so many things that flash through our minds all the time about the site, and that is that the burning question I have is that at some point we have to recognize that the cost of the cleanup far outweighs the cost of the risk. That means the spigot's going to be shut off at some point. And so we have to basically use our money that we have now very wisely on the high level, the very important stuff that we have to do. So my question is that what's going to happen when the money runs out? You know, because it's going to run out. $68 billion already spent. And now we're talking about another, the system plan. If you take a look at it, they're looking at $138 billion to finish the site, the cleanup of the site. That is unreasonable for us to request that of our country, okay, of all the taxpayers here. So we really need to get efficient. And I'm on the end of my career and I'm never going to see it. So I'm kind of disappointed that I know that I've been trying to make a difference, but I still haven't seen 1 gallon of high level waste vitrified.
All right. Ending from you. We got one from Kathy.
I just wanted to say that I am new, but I am a current worker at Hanford. I've been out there 36, 37 years, and I'm sad to think that your heart is hurt, but I'm out there every day seeing the progress that's being done. So it's hard to sometimes take a step back and see what everybody is thinking. But I appreciate learning new things and learning everybody's concerns, because being a worker, you don't hear that stuff. You don't see it. You don't recognize it because you're so enthralled with your job. But I just wanted to say thank you to the board for having us. Thank you for having this medium to get out the concerns. That's all I got to say.
And we'll check back in with our 2 members online that weren't ready. And then we'll check in with our member in the gallery. Larry Haler, is there any one thing you'd like to know about Hanford?
Not at this point, but I think as we look at the new administration coming in, new old administration, what are their priorities? Or do they include, or will they include cleanup of Hanford or total cleanup of Hanford? So that's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. And Kermit, is there any one thing you'd like to know about Hanford cleanup? Okay, so we're going to check in with the gallery, and I think we have 2 members that would like to propose additional questions. Matt, is there any one thing you would like to know about Hanford cleanup? If you can step up to the mic so those online can hear you as well.
Well, is this thing on even? There we go. Much of what I do is related to the tanks, so I'm interested in the disposition of them, how it will eventually be done once they're empty. Are they going to be grouted and left in place? Will technology advance sufficiently that they can be removed? And will the central plateau finally end as sacrificial zone is a harsh term, but will there ever be a public use for that area in the distant future? And thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we have an additional question from Chris.
Yeah, this was just for new members on the board. Every 3 years, DOE is required to produce a report called Life Cycle Cost Schedule and Scope of the cleanup. And this is a really good 2022 was the last report. Sometime in early 2025, the next report will come out. But this is a really good resource for people to take a look at the entire scope of the work that needs to be done, the time frame to accomplish that work, and the cost to accomplish that work. And it's in readable form. It's not highly technical, so it's easily understandable. And you can get this on hanford.gov. Either if you then search on documents or resources, you'll find something called life cycle reports. And I do encourage you at least to take a look. And if nothing else, just read the executive summary. That's 4 or 5 pages, and it will answer a lot of the questions that have maybe been voiced around the table here today.
Thank you. And Jim, what is the one other thing you'd really like to know about Hanford?
Yeah. Well, you're hearing it more and more and seeing it in the news, right, with the small modular reactors. And I think this was posed to Brian from the Oregon group here a week or so ago, and he said it was kind of on their radar, but not fully a deep dive. And I think, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but Oregon at this point, until we come up with a way to get rid of the high level waste, has kind of put a moratorium on nuclear sites, but Umatilla County right across the river, right, is advocating for them as Google and Amazon take over the earth and need this power. But there's still waste, they're still fraught with issues. And so I'm just curious where we're at on that. And lastly, trying to get up to speed on this board, it was helpful that I showed up before I was an alternate, just to kind of come up to speed. But the process through DOE is pretty onerous to get. Oregon's got a representative right now that would really like to be the alternate, and I think it's helpful if you can go and a couple folks. So the person that's looking to back me up is certainly wanting to get on the board, but we're looking a year out, even for that alternate. So I'm not sure if that can be expedited. Thank you.
All right, we have an excess of minutes, so we're taking other questions. Chuck has one.
Yes, thank you. One thing I'd like to see is some kind of report on the effects of ongoing climate change on that Hanford cleanup results and so forth. People have looked at this. I'd like to see something consolidated. It gives us a good idea what will happen in the next 50 years, for instance. Climate change.
Okay, before we close this out, are there any other questions people would like to submit? Go ahead.
If in fact we cannot grout high-level waste, I'd like to know why, and why it would be more important than letting it hit the Columbia River all the way to the ocean.
Did you change your mind? Okay. Anyone else in the room or online? All right. And with that, we are a little over a half an hour before a scheduled lunch. We have a couple options there. We can continue on with the agenda if the presenters are ready for that, or we can take an early lunch. What do you think, Madam Chair?
Committee chairs, are you guys ready to go? Becky? Okay, all right, okay, we'll just continue moving on. Becky wants us to move.
Okay, we're moving on to the meeting debriefs.
You want to go with Pam first? Pam, you? No, that's okay. All right, me is good.
Okay, so this is an update on the EMSSAB chairs meeting. So EMSSAB stands for the Environmental Management Site-Specific Advisory Board. Hanford is one of the 8 boards that's a part of this larger kind of umbrella group of citizen advisory boards under DOE. And so Susan and I, in the last week of September, went to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and had attended the chairs fall meeting. And we were there with other chairs, and we meet twice a year. And we kind of rotate to the different sites, so we're able to see each site's cleanup kind of unique challenges and what's going on, and do site tours. And then we hold a day and a half usual meeting of the chairs. And so just so you all are aware, the week of April 21st is going to be the next EMSSAB spring chairs meeting, which will be occurring here in Richland. There'll be a tour of Hanford. So it's open to the public. Anybody can attend who would like to. And just so you all know, there were no recommendations brought up at that meeting. Sometimes there's a recommendation that comes forward that Susan and I would then bring back to this board to decide whether that's going to go forward or not. This is just a purely informational sharing brief. We're not bringing any recommendations back. So on the first day, we toured the Oak Ridge site, which consists of 3 different sections. They have the Y-12 National High Security Complex, where they make thermonuclear devices. Then the next section was the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is the largest national lab in the complex in terms of budget and number of employees. And then the third section is called the East Tennessee Technology Park, which is where the former gaseous diffusion plant was. And it has since been demolished. Now the land is being transferred over to private companies. So Y-12's original mission during World War II and the Cold War was to enrich uranium using calutrons. And later they processed lithium for use in hydrogen bombs. Oak Ridge National Lab's original mission was to produce plutonium, and they have a graphite reactor, which is now a museum similar to B reactor. And the ORNL, the Oak Ridge National Lab section, contains the National Lab campus. So think like a college campus, with the original plutonium production facilities in very close proximity. ORNL was described to us as having a smaller footprint than Y12, but it has the highest levels of radiation and many challenging buildings that are highly contaminated. So one of the main challenges that Oak Ridge deals with is mercury, which was used in the lithium separation process. There's 22 million pounds of mercury, and it has contaminated the creek that runs through the site, the floodplain, and they talked about one building that contains 250,000 pounds of mercury. So this is a significant issue and different from Hanford cleanup. Oak Ridge is sited in a valley, and real estate is in high demand. So when we're driving through the site, it feels incredibly claustrophobic. It was really interesting to see and feel the difference between Hanford, where it's wide open spaces, lots of land. Oak Ridge, you have infrastructure, buildings, structures, water lines, power lines, all really close together. And for example, we saw a building that they would like to demolish, and yet immediately next to it, there's this water treatment system and a power line that both need to remain operational 24/7 for the national security mission. So this is the kind of challenges that they're dealing with. And one thing that stood out to me the most as being very different from Hanford. So, yep, let's see. And they don't have a lot of extra space to stage things next to a construction project. So like if they're trying to build a new building, they have to stage all of the construction materials like on a lot that's miles away from the actual place where they're doing the construction. Currently, DOE is clearing land and demolishing buildings from Y12's previous mission in order to make room for building new structures that will support the current defense and security missions. They're also replacing aging facilities that can no longer be upgraded. And we were told that these facilities were built in the day to last 10 years and instead have been in operation for 80 years and are now to the point where they can't do any more upgrades and they have to demolish them. And then DOE is also clearing up different buildings and contaminated sites within the ORNL section. And they have one on-site disposal facility that is for low-level waste. We're told mostly from construction debris. They also have a classified landfill for things the US government doesn't want others to see. We were told it was open only on Thursdays and only for a half an hour for people to dispose of things in the site, in the classified landfill. The mixed low-level waste cannot be disposed on site and is sent to Nevada. And then they also have a high inventory of true waste, which they are currently processing legacy true waste now, but ORNL is still producing true waste today. There are residents that live about 100 to 200 yards from the site boundary, so this felt also very different from Hanford. Groundwater is on average 10 feet deep, but in some areas there are artisanal springs, and in other areas the groundwater is 1 foot deep. Oak Ridge receives on average 60 inches of rainfall a year. That's compared to Richland's roughly 8 inches of rainfall. And they shared with us that one of their biggest challenges for cleanup is water in terms of rainwater, groundwater, those kinds of things. And this was another major difference I noticed between the two sites. At the Y12 DOE cleanup, Y12 site, DOE cleanup has to coordinate with the National Nuclear Security Administration and its mission. So that means that some cleanup projects may be put on hold if those two conflict. So that's the site tour. I'm going to briefly kind of go over some things Susan and I learned during the chair's meeting. So Kelly Snyder, DOE designated federal officer, shared that Manual 515 3.1-1, which is an advisory board guidance document, will be updated and it will become an order. Kelly stated that the new order should be out within the next 6 months to a year. I don't know how that will change in terms of administration change and all that. It may be pushed out further than that timeline. Some of the changes that will be captured in the order will impact the EMSSAB desk reference and the HAB's operating ground rules document. So HAB leadership recently received edits back from DOE on the operating ground rules document, and we've been asked to hold off on discussions about that document until this new order is finalized and official. DOE headquarters received the recommendation that was written during the EMSSAB chair's spring meeting about website recommendations about the website, and they will be issuing a response. They didn't have a response at this fall meeting. In August, GAO came out with a report regarding DOE's engagement with stakeholders, tribal nations, and state governments, and offered 3 suggestions for improvement. And so one of the suggestions was specific to citizen advisory boards, and Kelly shared an update about where they are in the process. DOE is working on statements of work, reaching out to organizations and entities to learn about best practices. And they want to hear from individuals on what feedback should be included in the objective evaluation. They aren't sure who will conduct the evaluation, but it should be wrapped up by January 2026. And that's included in the GAO recommendation as a date. The evaluation will include all 8 sites. So hopefully we'll get updates on that process, but I encourage you all to read the GAO report on stakeholder engagement. We heard an update from Rod Raimondo on EM's technology program, including information about a Hanford tank sidewall crawler, which is a robot that is used to investigate the annulus space between double shell tanks. The update also talked about exoskeleton and exosuits that have been tested at Hanford. They're worn by workers to provide added support and strength. So that could mean gloves that help maintain grip and provide extra strength, or for tasks that require overhead work. So a worker could wear the exosuit to support their upper body and shoulders to prevent muscle soreness or injuries. And this technology update also briefly covered how artificial intelligence is being used, for example, to analyze groundwater monitoring to predict trends or for data analytics. We heard a briefing from Sarah Schaefer about how the uranium-233 inventory at Oak Ridge is being repurposed as medical isotopes for cancer treatment research. We also heard an update from Justin Marble on the waste isolation pilot plant and transuranic waste. He talked about how they recently celebrated 25 years since the start of WIP operations, and that WIP is currently about 44% filled, and he reassured us that WIP will never fill up and never meet the Land Withdrawal Act limit. WIP is being added onto as needed, with new panels being added, but he said that 19 panels would be the maximum number, and the regulatory documents get updated as new panels are built. A recent challenge was a monsoon rain event that occurred and one of the shafts wasn't closed, so they ended up having to remove 20 feet of water from the bottom of the waste isolation pilot plant shaft. And finally, we received a briefing from Julia Schenk on transportation. Julia talked about different compliance, safety, and evaluation programs conducted for transportation carriers, packaging certification programs, transportation planning and management tools, and training programs. Trucking is the main mode for transporting waste. Some waste is sent by rail and some by air, but there are more restrictions for those 2 modes. Julia shared that 5,000 shipments of hazardous waste are sent per year by truck and rail, or by truck, and rail is used for heavier loads. And she shared the Department of Transportation approves the final route of the waste shipments. And then we had to miss a transportation and emergency preparedness program exercise in the afternoon because we had to change our flights to avoid the hurricane that was due to hit Oak Ridge the evening of Thursday, Friday morning. So we missed one of the activities that was planned, unfortunately. I just want to see if Susan has anything to add. Ryan, Lindsay, you were both there as well. If you have anything to share that I didn't cover.
I didn't have anything to share. It was my first time, and I think the first time we had the state support the EMSAB meeting. So it was a really good experience, and you covered everything, I think.
I guess just a quick thank you to Laura for rearranging everyone's flights to get us out of the hurricane. So thank you, Laura.
Okay. That was the EMSAB debrief, and then the other debrief will be the National Cleanup Workshop. Who'd like to lead that?
That's me. So this GAO analysis of the site-specific advisory boards, has that been shared with us?
Josh, did you share that through happenings at some point?
I do think it was shared, but I
Could you
would
share
have.
share it again, please? I think something we should pay attention to.
Sure, I will look at putting that in this week's happenings.
Okay. All right. So so I'm going to report on the 10th annual DOE National Cleanup Workshop, which was held September 17th and 18th. Susan and I attended remotely. And I'd like to thank the Department of Energy for making that possible. Even the remote engagement was expensive, so sincerely appreciated it. The conference began with a presentation from Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. Her keynote address, she stated that the DOE Office of Environmental Management's cleanup mission is a shining example of why public service matters. She cited accomplishments from across the complex, such as progress at Hanford to address tank waste and the launch of the Cleanup to Clean Energy program. The Secretary highlighted the need for partnerships for the success of cleanup missions and the obligation DOE has to invite communities, tribes, and industry to the table to ensure that they have a voice. She provided numerous successes resulting from these partnerships, such as STEM-based opportunities for apprentices, protecting natural resources by working with tribal nations, and striking agreements with unions and trade groups to ensure workforce longevity, safety, and health. The Secretary discussed the desire to transform cleaned up land at EM sites to build some of the largest clean energy projects in the world in Washington State, South Carolina, Nevada, and New Mexico. The next speaker was Representative Chuck Fleischman from Tennessee. He is the chair of the Energy and Water Appropriations Budgets Committee in the House of Representatives. He expressed confidence that a budget will pass that includes top-line funding for cleanup sites to be able to continue the invaluable work being done. He expressed his commitment to ensure that a continuing resolution is passed. The next speaker is EM1. This person is in charge of the environmental cleanup program, and this is who our site manager reports to. Her name is Candace Robertson. I've actually known Candace for more than 20 years, starting when she was an elected official in Nevada. So it's pretty fun to see somebody move up in their career. She highlighted the progress that EM has made and outlined current and future priorities. She cited progress at Hanford to start treating tank waste. At Oak Ridge, they're completing the first stage of the new environmental management disposal facility. Oak Ridge has objected to having an ERDF-like facility for many years, so it's a big deal that they're actually building a facility. They wanted their waste to go offsite. The Savannah River site has treated over 10 million gallons of tank waste at the salt waste processing facility. I have provided an electronic link to Josh to go in the meeting minutes from my presentation so that you can actually watch the Candace's presentation. on your home computer or wherever you want to. I thought her presentation was excellent, and she goes site by site in terms of what's going on. So if you have the opportunity to look at it, I encourage you to do that. Hanford managers Matt Irwin and Brian Hartman discussed the detailed work at waste treatment plant that has gotten the plant to where it is today. Irwin noted it takes all parts of the site working in close partnership to achieve success in such a complicated mission. Hartman shared a video that walked the audience through the process for getting the plant's 2 melters up to operational temperature and outlined some of the next steps as the site moves to shift to vitrification of tank waste. Los Alamos field office managers highlighted a new technology aimed at improving the accuracy of waste classification processes. The Universal Drum Assay and Segregation System was developed in the United Kingdom and is now being tested at Los Alamos with exciting potential applications at other sites across the complex. There was a session on artificial intelligence that's been mentioned a bit today. It has been a dominant topic in recent years with platforms like Meta AI, Apple Intelligence, and Google AI gaining attention for their advancements as virtual assistants. The rise of ChatGPT, a large language model developed by OpenAI, further propelled the AI boom by demonstrating its capability to understand and generate human-like text. A panel session led by the Savannah River National Laboratory discussed how AI, machine learning, and data analytics can revolutionize the environmental cleanup mission. The central theme of the discussion was data. Savannah River Site Director Vahid Majidi stated, "We work in an industry that is extremely data rich, and we're figuring out how to use machine learning, data analytics, and AI in practical ways to make the data work for us. What is most important for us is to improve worker safety and secondly, improve productivity. EM's operations offer a broad, untapped potential for AI applications." In conclusion, they noted, "We have so much data, but we don't know what that data means. We have to get to a place where we can crunch the data and create new information that we can use to make better, more informed decisions." Community leaders, regulators, and others attending the conference were interested in DOE topics in addition to the environmental cleanup program. They received a briefing on efforts to build facilities through consent-based siting for an interim facility to store spent nuclear fuel and a deep geologic repository to replace Yucca Mountain. So Rob, you posed questions about that, and it is a high priority for the Department of Energy to build those 2 facilities in communities that choose to have them. Susan, anything else?
No, I think you hit the high points. I personally found there was a panel discussion on Hanford where Brian Vance moderated the panel. And there were representatives from each of the contractors as well as his staff. And I thought it was really worth watching and listening to a lot of really good information of where Brian sees the site going. That was especially interesting to me.
Any questions? Thank you.
Rob has a question, and Rebecca.
So was was there any discussion about the WEIR process during your meetings? Largely because is that in our holistic negotiations, we've decided to pass on probably one of the most important WEIR that's waste incidental to reprocessing, okay, and allowing our low-level waste on site to be actually grouted and stored on site. Okay, that's the benefit of the WEIR process for Hanford, and much likely speeding a lot of things up. But was there any discussion, or what are the other sites doing with respect to WEIR or waste incidental to reprocessing?
Okay, there was an amendment to federal law that was applicable to Idaho and the Savannah River site years ago. And Senator Cantwell prevented it from being made applicable at Hanford. And so it has to do with the engagement of the NRC in the process. And I can't remember the exact notion of it, but it's believed that it's not necessary at Hanford because of how we have engaged the NRC. So we didn't need that provision of federal law. And some environmental groups objected to it being made available to Hanford. But there are different processes for dealing with waste because of that provision at Savannah River in Idaho.
Thank you.
And a question from Rebecca.
My question's actually for me, and I suppose I could have just leaned over and asked her, but I think it's important for everybody here to hear it, I guess. I had a question about, you talked about, Kelly, talking about there's going to be a new order now. And it pertains to our operating ground rules. And you said that the leadership has received a copy of that. Are you talking about you and Susan? Or, and that we're not supposed to talk about it until it becomes an order? Okay, so I'm confused then.
Okay, we got two different things.
Okay.
There is a DOE manual, 515.1 something, that is a DOE complex-wide manual on advisory committees. DOE is getting rid of manuals, and that they're going through the process to take the pertinent information. No, Tom. Taking that pertinent information and putting it into a different document, whether it be a policy document, a order, into a different beast. That document is a flow down from FACA. So you get FACA at the top, and then with DOE, and then it goes to it's gone to the DOE, this manual. And so it's going to be replaced by something else. And then below that is the EM charter. And then below that is our operating ground rules. Okay, so our operating ground rules were revised and sent to headquarters in April of 2022, approved by the board, sent to headquarters for review and acceptance by DOE headquarters and the DFO, Kelly Snyder. That's the document that we have received comments back on. And it went to all the ESC. Tom is kind of the lead of that group to review it. But that was the document that right after we received it, it was put into a holding pattern because headquarters decided they needed to get rid of this 515. So it's kind of we don't know, rather, Kelly doesn't want us to do anything with our draft OGR right now because we don't know what the new flow downs are going to look like as far as, from a requirement standpoint.
So if I could step in, Susan. So DOE 515.1, the manual is being revised and it will be reissued as an order. So that is how it's going to roll out. In the meantime, Kelly had communicated that the changes incorporated within the new order will impact all of the advisory boards across the EM complex. Because she didn't know in what capacity the new order would affect each advisory board, she requested that anybody who was in the process of updating their operating ground rules just put a pause on that for now until the order comes out, and then we can ensure that the operating ground rules will be in compliance with DOE Order 515.1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. So our operating ground rules as they stand right now is still what we're operating under until further notice.
The 2008 version, correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So stick to what we got.
Yep, 2008 still in play. We're still good. Tom, did you want to jump in? Okay, since I cut you off there a minute ago.
Any other questions for Susan, Mia, or Pam about these meetings? In the room or online? All right. I think that's the end of that item then. We're thinking an early lunch? An early lunch and return on time, so 1:30? All right, we'll return from lunch at 1:30 for committee reports and the National Liaison Report. All right, everyone, we have reached 1:30. So the next item on our adjusted agenda, since we got through the meeting debriefs, will be the committee reports. Who would like to lead us off with those? Tom would like to lead us off with those.
Hi, everybody. So the Cleanup and Risk Mitigation Committee met last month. And we had a nice informal brief on 324 building that didn't have any pictures because we were going to get them today, but didn't get those. So hopefully we can get those pictures at some point. We also had a really a robust discussion of risk and trying to figure out what we want the agencies to bring us for the advice that they asked us for to talk about how they communicate risk to the community. So we had some framing questions that came out of that and did like a whiteboard exercise to figure out what risk means to us because everybody has a different definition of risk. We had an election and we now have a vice chair, which is new and novel. It's the first time we've had a vice chair in a while. So Jim got elected as vice chair. And our next meeting is in January, and we're going to be talking about groundwater. So we got confirmed that we're going to have a groundwater themed meeting that has a couple different topics and some things to talk about. I think that's all I have. Am I missing anything, Jim? Okay. Next.
All right, thank you. Which committee would like to go next? Lids would like to go next.
Well, I think Becky said, well, I'll be back after lunch. That's why she said, we'll put this off till. Anyway, I'm Richard Bloom. I'm the vice chair of the Lids Committee. We are awaiting the response to the traffic advice. I believe coming up, we're going to have a Beryllium update. The predecessor to Lids was the environmental safety and health environmental safety HSEP committee. And one of the things that came out of that was a lot of the efforts associated with beryllium exposure on site. And this is an update. We haven't had an update in several years. Then also we're planning or looking at trying to get a briefing on the annual environmental report. And I've asked for just sort of a summary. It's a thick document, but to have a presentation which shows the breadth of how DOE monitor or DOE's contractors monitor the site and look for, you came back. She's going to let me finish. She stood out in the hall until I started. So anyway, just a summary overview, which would be, I believe, is the interest of a lot of people to just get an understanding of how much monitoring goes on and what the results are. Roadkill, autopsies, if you wish, and as well as soil samples, air sampling, and things of that nature. Anything to add, Madam Chair?
You did a great job. Yeah, I did want to add. Did you talk about the advice that we The traffic safety advice.
that we're waiting for a response
Yeah, that we're
on,
waiting
yes.
for a response. Okay. Yeah, I did want to add, when we put out that advice, they had also, the engineering study had talked about, let's do this so I don't have to leave. Had talked about the old river road, taking that from a 4-lane road because it was in disrepair, that road. And so I was actually out in the outer areas last week, and I drove that road back, and they did a really great job on the road. There's no passing on that now because it's a 2-lane road, and so down the center of it is wide open space in between the lanes, one going this way and one going the opposite direction. The road's really nice. However, I think that they need to put some speed limit signs up there. And I don't know if they're just not up because they were just finishing construction on that. And it's great. However, if you have someone behind you, there is no passing. And if you have someone who's very enthusiastic about getting somewhere, there still is no safe spot to pull off the side of the road, because I was trying to get out of this very enthusiastic person behind me, and I'm thinking I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go to get out of the way. So the shoulders on that side of the road still, in my opinion, are unsafe when you're going the actual speed limit to get out of somebody else's way. So I don't know. That's something we can talk about at our next committee meeting.
Well, thank you. And then next up is going to have to be Twist with Rob.
Hello. We had a very good meeting this last month. And we got a presentation. It really worked out well with our tour because then we could actually see these applied. But the research has been looking at ways of extending the life of a tank. We know that some of our our double shell tanks in particular have wastage on the sidewalls from the filling and draining, and there's certainly some issues there where the thickness of the wall has decreased a bit, and so the research has led them to a process called cold spray, which is kind of like a flame spray process, but it's a cold spray. Not using such high heat, but using super velocity impingement. So it was a good talk. They're looking for more testing on it before they can deploy it, but expect it to be deployed in the coming years. I think it was a good success. In other words, what they're doing is adding material on the outside of the vessel to build up the thickness to account for the thickness on the inside that has been wasted. And so that's a good approach. There's a couple other things that went on. We are in the process, or we pretty much we finalized our 2025 work plan. And some of the key questions that we're going to get and that were answered here will be in that meeting, hopefully. We've asked for, being that right now the tanks and some of the tanks waste are being mixed. There used to be just 4 classifications of waste, A, B, C, and D. And it happens from different ages of the processing plants going into it. And so because we've had tank leaks, they've had to start mixing some of these some more. And that's large part of what the beginning of the pre-treat facility is to blend the waste before vitrification. So, anyway, we had asked some questions before. How does the chemical makeup influence the sequence of waste retrievals? Where does the waste going to go? Retrieving, all these questions have been asked by the committee members to what is the temperature of the waste, et cetera. So these have been forwarded to DOE several months ago, and hopefully these upcoming meetings will be it. Okay, in January, we have a meeting, and it looks like the subject of the meeting, one is we're going to have a report on the tank waste operations and their progress. And it'll also touch on the TISCR performance, as well as the TBI and the A101 leak. So next month actually January is going to be very busy. And any other further additions to the committee? Other than we've been asking for a grout discussion. Yeah. We also have an IM team tomorrow on the system plan, and it's tough. You can't possibly digest it in the next hours. It's a very thick document, but the system plan has a number of options, and we can speak to them tomorrow. I've kind of been boning up on them so I can speak to some of that part in our meeting. But I do think that there are some improvements on the system plan that can be made. And one of the suggestions from the holistic negotiations is right now system plans are being released every 3 years. System plans basically look at the economics and the cost and do a lot of projections and things in the future. And also will set paths. So we're going to have some discussion of that. And that's about it, I think, other than we still need a grout expert. I know you, and everybody should know, Lindsay is just working so hard to get these people for us. We had the last meeting was totally very informative, the Cold Spray. A lot of detail in what they're doing, success. And then we were able to go out and see those patches on the tour that were being made. And there's a lot of good questions from the members of the committee asking about those. For example, how do you inspect something after you've had this thickness on? And we got a nice description of how they've got rollout sheets of all the inspections made, and I think I feel very confident in that program. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. And the other committee is the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee. This chaired by Amber Waldrop, who was unable to return after lunch, and Michelle Holtz, the vice chair, is also unable to fill in for her. So I will, if you would like, oh. Well, I did want to offer the opportunity for somebody to fill in for their experiences with the committee, if somebody would like to share that. All right. And then the following item that we identified on the agenda is the National Liaison Report. Pam, you noted that you sort of provided that with your National Cleanup Workshop. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, unless anybody's got a question. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Any questions for our National Liaison or any of these committee chairs? Oh.
I do.
Michelle Holt just logged in online, and she let us know that she does not have an update for the COE meeting. Oh, Rebecca.
Yeah. Pam, I just had a quick question. Are there any meetings coming up in the near future that that any of us on the HAB might be interested in, or even in just listening in on? Or
I didn't bring anything, but it was mentioned earlier that there's going to be a series of workshops, I think, dealing with citing for repositories. And that came out, you sent that to us, Josh, within the last week or so, I think, that people could sign up for it if they wanted to, or Mia sent it, or anyway, someone sent it. Oh, it looks like that gentleman sent it.
Appreciate the flourish. The next question is from Tom.
Less a question, more a comment. Also, things we can do as not as the HAB, but as members. There's also a comment period on the legacy waste definition for true. And that's running until January 3rd. So got a couple months to read up on it.
All right.
So just to follow up on that repository issue, I mean, so headquarters acknowledges they got to do something, and it's going to take a long time. So over the years, I've followed what's happened in Europe, and they have followed consent-based processes where communities volunteered. And I think I've shared before that Finland's deep geologic repository is open or verging on opening. So Finland is, they've been years in putting this together, but it's been successful. So it's an interesting model to look at. Anyway, we'll see what the new administration thinks about spending money on this. I just read something over lunch that they're wanting to cut the federal budget dramatically, and sadly, Washington and Oregon did not vote for the winning candidate.
The other news, I guess, is Canada now is doing a consent-based siting for their repository, and they now have two municipalities or villages that have voted to be in consideration for repository. So it does work.
All right. Rob, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so say a community decides to cite it there, what about the state? The state can overrule that.
Yeah, I think they'd have to be very involved. So as I recall, I mean, this has been a long time ago, but once a community volunteers, they get money to do technical analysis, and states would be involved in any technical analysis for the appropriate geology and circumstances. So
I'm afraid we're going to fall into the same trap we fell into last time with Yucca Mountain. You realize the license for Yucca Mountain has been sent to NRC and is awaiting signing.
there's also a repository in Germany that's been built, and they won't allow them to open it. So I mean,
Yes. So you can keep an eye out for the link to that public comment period and have happenings. Next item on our agenda is the new member check-in. So you've had the opportunity to experience orientation, a series of committee meetings, and your first full board meeting. What questions do you have after this, if any? In the room or online? Yep. So we have a question from Brian.
Okay, forgive me for I am new, but I would hope this had been under consideration before, but I'd like to know if the chance for reusing 102AY is a possibility or been discussed, patching the tank, double shell tank up so we can have more space. Anybody?
Available is the state.
Ecology might want to respond. They have previously rejected repairs of old tanks. I don't know if that's still their position.
Yeah, that's not a topic that I think we have the people in the room for right now, but I think that's something we can certainly respond to at the next Tanks Committee meeting. It's we can jot that down, both Lindsay and I, for our respective folks, and we can make sure we get that answered for you.
Yeah, we'll have the correct tank integrity folks at the January meeting.
Okay, I'm going to assert my power as chair. I'm going to go around the room and Josh, help me when we get to the screen. I'm going to look directly to the new members because this is specific to the new members. Provide us your thoughts on orientation, the tour, the first board meeting, whatever, the transition to coming onto the board. What are your thoughts? Because we want to continue to improve these processes. So we need your fresh perspective. So I'm going to say, Brian.
Well, thank you, Susan, and thank everybody for having me. I'm not sure where I'm going to land in this whole process, but I appreciate the conversation I had with you that very first day that kind of led me into, should I speak or shut up and listen and use two of these and one of these? And I was talking to the gal next to you about this earlier. We struggle with where to inject, our thoughts, I guess, and what to say, what we can't say. Being a former worker, with the hands-on experience, it's kind of tough to keep my mouth shut sometimes, but I'll try my best. I love the tour. I thank everybody that was involved with organizing that. I appreciate it, even though some of the places I have been and lived, but it's kind of an eye opener for everybody in the room, I guess, and everybody's different positions on the committee. So I'd like to get to know everybody a little better and some of their backgrounds and get involved. Does that answer your question? All right.
Okay, so what did I think about the orientation? I really appreciated it, but it kind of led me thinking, what am I getting into? I've attended the orientation, then I attended the 2 meetings afterwards, and it's a lot for a new person. Even though I'm a worker, it's still a lot of information. And I have to agree with Brian. We talked about it because we are workers or former workers. Like, where do we fit into the scenario, and what can we interject and not? In the training, it talked about being a good listener and all of that stuff, but it never really kind of like hit some of the topics to understand more of what's going on with the HAB. I felt. Okay. What was part of the other question?
Orientation, tour, transition onto the board, and first meeting.
So the tour, I was going to go. I felt that I already had a badge, so I didn't need to sign up. But then I noticed on the last information that got sent out, it said you had to sign up. So then I missed the tour. And I was kind of looking forward to it. I had been out here for so long, been to different sites, but I know I missed some of the stuff on the tour that I really wanted to see. But transition, I'm still learning on listening to everybody. I mean, it's a lot of information, a lot of concerns being brought. And I appreciated that Brian Vance has a good handle on what's going on the site. That's comforting to know. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Matthew?
Thought the tour was really helpful, particularly not just the sites that were visited, but the staff that was available to answer questions. And the tour guide was also very knowledgeable from being working in the site in the past. Orientation was good. It's also really interesting taking a look at things on the ground and being here after spending several years basically learning about the Hanford site through the administrative record and mostly phone online interactions with some people in this room as well as tri-party staff. So it's been good. And I thought the orientation was good. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us speak to this. I thought the site tour was great, getting to see some places that I worked at a while ago and other sites as well. The orientation was done well. It was good to run through everything and kind of see how things work and the processes of the board. And this meeting has been another, listening, learning, seeing how it acts, it goes. I think as a new member, listening and picking up on how things work and moving forward as you get more comfortable with it is the best way. And then the other thing for me that's easy is I'm representing people. So that keeps me to a spot where I know my core role with this board. So that I know that makes it easier for me.
Yeah, thank you. Being the outsider, I think to kind of what all's going on inside, it's been very enlightening for me, and I think the orientation and the tour was extremely beneficial. It's all really a new world for me. Haven't really had any involvement with Hanford, and so all of it's just kind of brand new, and I'm just amazed at the work that's being done, that's been done, and the complexity of everything that's going on. So I thought the tour again saw many things that I didn't even know was going on or what it takes to do what you all are doing, and so it was very, very helpful and very encouraging. I think it gave me kind of a broader sense of what's going on. Again, the orientation. Again, it's all new, and I thought they did a very good job of just kind of at a basic level, at least especially for me to kind of help me understand the different things. I thought the breakouts on the committees and talking about what each of the committees did was helpful as well. So I did appreciate that. I think I'm in health. I come from the healthcare side, and healthcare is known for their own acronyms as well. And it's good to know that you all have your share of acronyms as well. I'm still trying to figure out what those acronyms mean. And so again, having maybe an acronym book or something to say, okay, what does that acronym mean may be helpful for someone like me that's outside of the kind of the normal world. I would say, again, just keep things basic for me. I think I probably pick up maybe 10% of what all y'all say. I think the big question for me probably is, again, being the outsider, what do you need from me? How can I help? And what can I bring to this group? And happy to do it, but probably just need some direction on how I can help.
I have to totally agree with what Spencer just said. As being a layperson, I thoroughly enjoyed the tour. Absolutely had no idea what I was going to see and was frankly somewhat overwhelmed by everything that's out there, despite the fact that I understand that 1,000 structures have been removed. That's just hard to imagine for me. I spent 30 years in the fuel business, so I have an understanding of environmental remediation, double-walled tanks with interstitial barriers and so forth and so on, all these terms I've heard here. I kind of feel like I've jumped on a speeding locomotive, and I'm desperately trying to catch up. But I'm a quick study, and probably in 6 months you'll be telling me to shut up. I'm talking too much. But for now, I'm just taking it all in, and I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Josh, before we go to the screen, let's go over to, because we've got Matt and Alan. So do you guys, you can engage on this topic because we want your thoughts.
I don't have too many thoughts. I'm kind of like Kevin. I'm just here for the first time, learning, soaking in like a sponge. I'm My background's actually law enforcement, and I'm retired, but I still work part-time for myself. Travel all over Western Washington or Eastern Washington. So I'm really excited to learn. And like Kevin said, I am going to soak it all in, and hopefully I never have to sit over in that chair. I just get to sit back here and relax and do my work. So thank you.
And for those that don't realize, because this was Alan's first meeting, Alan Key is the alternate for Grant and Franklin counties.
And I'm Matt Hendrickson, the alternate for Oregon Department of Energy. I was fortunate enough, this is, I guess, going to be the end of my first year. I was fortunate enough to also take the tour, which I did appreciate. I like that. I believe for the other new members, the thing that helped me the most is to actually just engage. And when there is a question, ask it. There's quite a few people here with a good technical background and some other people with a very strong social network, both of which might be able to answer those questions that you have. So ask. And IM teams are pretty important. I'm really looking forward to the meeting tomorrow on the system plan, because frankly, one of the things that helped me the most was the system plan, especially as you get into the assumptions in the back. So if you have the time and the willingness, join us tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we have 2 new members attending online right now. Shawnee, what did you think of the onboarding experience?
I gotta be honest, this is my first meeting and I did not attend the orientation. So I'm feeling a little bit like I need to catch up. However, I'm very familiar with some of the conversation, not just because my husband works there as a nuclear engineer, but I've been in other environments where we've had opportunities to visit the VIT plant on the tour, and just kind of listening in on other committees that have been just kind of speaking about the issues at the Hanford site. I am hoping to learn more about the committees so that I can get more involved in learning, and working on some of the activities, or just kind of just being able to have a little bit more input on some of the issues, and just kind of sharing some of the views from individuals that I have worked with my little day job, which I feel is definitely going to support some of the EPA initiatives with environmental justice and some of the focus on the community, while we are doing the cleanup and after the cleanup, to kind of help, our citizens here, and how to adapt and how to work with, the changes as they occur. So I'm listening. I'm going to be a sponge and try to catch on as quickly as I can, and read over the materials that you provided, which I believe it was Susan that I spoke with on the phone, very helpful, and explaining to me some of the requirements or some of the commitments that it would take to serve on this board. So I am going to make sure that I make myself available to be present.
Thank you. And
Thank
we
you.
also have Sure online. What do you think of the tour orientation and everything following that?
So I skipped the tour because I basically worked at most of the places that you guys were going to. And also because of my role as an alternate in the non-bargaining unit, non-management role, I have to actually take vacation to attend the meetings. So I guess for me, I appreciated the orientation. It was very welcoming is not the right word, but I think that everyone who put the orientation together went out of their way to make new members feel at ease and not feel overwhelmed. So I do appreciate that. And I also learned a lot from like listening to representatives from the other stakeholders, because I think that when you're on site and you're in it, you kind of lose sight at how other people view the work that's being done at Hanford. You know, it's that whole like outside looking in versus inside looking out. And when we were having the discussion about the definition of risk at the CARM committee meeting, you know, the expression got thrown about was perceived risk is risk. And in all the years that I've been working at Hanford, I wasn't even thinking about, well, how do farmers think about what's happening? And like, if Hanford has a bad reputation, that it could impact the bottom line for our agricultural community because people don't want to buy crops that they think are contaminated. Like, I honestly hadn't considered that, because it's just, for me, I'm kind of in it and I'm used to being around the stuff, if that makes any sense. But as far as like things that would help, the other thing that struck me about being at the orientation is I'm in my 50s and I was one of the youngest people in the room, you know, so I think we need to look at ways of getting younger people onboarded to the HAB, because folks that are going to be living with the consequences of the decisions being made the longest probably need to be more present. And I don't know how to go about doing that. And we might want to look at some of the meeting times. As I mentioned, for me to be in this meeting, I'm taking vacation. So I'm taking vacations to talk about work. I don't know the fix for that, but it's an observation. And that's all I got.
Thank you. And are there any questions about participating? Brian.
I do have a couple of suggestions possibly we can consider. As far as the acronym soup for people speaking, and when you throw out an acronym, I would suggest trying to explain what that is or say what the acronym means. And if you're a new person and somebody throws one out, you need to stop or raise your hand and just ask. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. I did new hire orientation for several years, and that was one thing that we emphasized most is, no stupid questions. So ask. Don't be afraid to ask what the acronym is about. And as far as the breakout committees and whatnot, when you see a new person, I think it'd be in our best interest to introduce ourselves in greater depth and give the backgrounds of everybody attending at these meetings, especially when we're in our smaller little committees. So, I mean, that would help me to know where everybody's coming from, I guess. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Ed, I'm going to put you on the spot. You walked in at the tail end.
Yes.
What we're doing is a new member check-in.
Okay.
And trying to get, what we're looking for is your thoughts on the process coming in, the orientation, the tour, the first board meeting, and any opportunities for improvement.
Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity. Overall, I thought it was a very good process. Very much enjoyed the tour, even though I'm an old hand at the Hanford site itself. I still learned things while I was there. Orientation's good. I'm still trying to find my feet on the ground here with this organization. What value can I add? And how can I utilize my time appropriately to meet the goals and the missions of this group? So I just need, as far as that goes, I need some more time to decide what's going on. Okay.
Amen.
Oh, a comment from Rob?
Yes, there's no bad questions. Okay, there are no bad, the only bad question is to Josh, and that's when's lunch? So people, please feel free to ask any question you want. The one thing for the new members that I would recommend that you do is on our website, we have copies of all of these PowerPoint presentations that people have been giving for the last umpteen years. Okay, I would highly recommend you spend an evening or a little bit of time going through some of those PowerPoint presentations, and you'll start to see the level of detail that the presenters give us. And you'll kind of feel, okay, well, I could make a comment here, or that's incomplete or something. And I really see that those PowerPoint presentations are very valuable. And you can see the scope of what we've talked about in the past. And so, for example, for tomorrow, you know, we had our, you know, our holistic negotiation discussion that's in the PowerPoints. You'll also see stuff about the system plan and its presentation. And so, so feel free to just browse that website and you'll find all kinds of treasures in that, from the standpoint of traffic to safety to tanks to cleanup to water, you name it. Thank you.
And if you are on the chat, Patrick Conrad, thank you, Patrick, put a link to the Hanford acronyms. So if you don't have that saved as a favorite, I recommend you do that.
And similarly, the new member resource binder, which you can still request if you want a printed copy, has a small acronyms glossary with a QR code that leads right to that acronym database. Rob can show it to you because he has one in his hands. Is there any other new member questions to address before moving on to board business? All right.
Josh, real quick, let's just, do any of the existing members have anything that they would also like to say? Not just Rob. Okay, Pam and Chris.
Josh has mentioned a publication that he puts out on Thursdays, which tells what's happening. So if you're confused, you want to know what's going on, go to your emails on Thursdays and you'll find his email and there are links. Thanks.
Tom Cecilia, who's chair of the CARM committee, he puts out for every committee meeting something called a wrap sheet. And that wrap sheet contains links to a lot of the latest documents that the tri-party agencies put out relative to the Hanford site. And I think if we go on the Hanford Advisory Board website under CARM, I think all your wrap documents are listed there, right? But that's a good way, instead of having to search through the administrative record or other things like that, to get access to what a lot of the major recent documents are that have been released relative to remediation and a number of other things. And they're called the wrap sheet.
So I just wanted to add, when Pam earlier was talking about when we went on the tour, the low activity waste building, I also was just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's been many years. I don't normally typically go on the tours, just because because I work at Hanford anyway. So, but I thought, oh, I really wanted to see the low activity waste building and just see how far it's progressed. And I remember when we went in there, I think that one of the very last times we were there, we got to go in. It was before they even had the lids on the melters. And so we got to see the melters installed before they had the lids on them, and they allowed us to take pictures and stuff of them. So being there this time was like, oh my gosh, and it's actually, something that I never dreamed would ever even come true. And, while I was still actually working at the site. So I thought that the tour was really good. I also I liked having the breakout sessions where we got to talk about the different committees and stuff. And I do agree with Brian. I think when we have the smaller, like the committee meetings, when we go around the room, we introduce ourselves. like, oh, I'm so-and-so and this is who I represent. Maybe just a little background information, kind of help you understand why maybe people have certain questions or why, they're bringing up issues that maybe other people aren't because their backgrounds are, we all come from different backgrounds. And so, and I think that we more than likely have time for those in our committee meetings. So that's my 2 cents.
Very valuable 2 cents. Anybody online have anything else they would like to add?
It's not looking like it.
Okay.
Hmm,
Jim.
Yeah, thanks. At the last meeting, at the HAB meeting here a month or so ago, one of the new members, when we left, he said, what's a Eastern Oregon cattle rancher doing over here? And so I think the notion that I take offense to your thought that you're an outsider. I get it. I've never worked on the site, and I'll never know what it was like to work on the site and what these folks bring, nor do I want to know. I mean, I want to know a little bit of their world, right? I'll never know the tech stuff that Tom knows or Chris knows, nor do I care to, right? I think you just, and I think you got to be careful that you don't try and conform to the HAB. I think you gotta, I think you gotta, conform the HAB to you, right? It's got to change. Otherwise, we'll just leave folks in here forever, right? So I think you take your approach, right? There's things certainly that interest me. There's, a series that's being put on by Hanford Challenge right now that looks at all different aspects of Hanford, right? The other day it was an hour-long deal with the tribes, and those are things that speak to me. The tank farm stuff or some of these real tech stuff. Yeah, I've got to know a little bit of that, but we got to conform the HAB to us as we move forward, and I think that's the approach. I mean, if we try and understand everything, we'll never get there. So I think you go to a honeybee colony, right? They don't know one another's jobs, but it works collectively. And so I think that's what we got to bring.
And we have a comment from Richard.
I was just reflecting back on my first year on the HAB, and it was an interesting time then. A lot of, yes, they did have wheels. But no, and again, where you fit in, we're a citizens advisory board. And so we each bring different aspects to this, concerns, confusion, whatever else, as well as technical information. So from the standpoint, it's the whole goal of the HAB is to help DOE be successful. And that's the key. Success is aided by us asking the question that other community members may ask, whether you're a cattle rancher in Eastern, I mean, how much dose is my cow getting? And things of that nature. So don't feel shy about asking the question as come back. And just remember, sometimes we don't remember what the acronym stood for anyway. So don't feel like we know what we're talking about. So take.
And I just wanted to step in here for a second and thank everyone for sharing. As a reminder, this isn't a technical board. This is a citizens advisory board. And so everyone's input and their perspective is valued. So we appreciate all of your time and energy that you volunteer to the mission. Ryan, anything to add?
All right. And I think with that, we're about ready to move to board business. Objections? All right. So the first item is thematically appropriate. It is the new HAB member mentor list. Who would like to speak to that?
So kind of dovetailing with the previous conversation, we've put together a list of existing HAB members that would like to be mentors to the new members. I would also like to extend an invitation to any existing members who are not on the list to please put forward your contact information if you'd like to become a mentor. But this list is for new members to use as they would like. It includes Chris Sutton at the moment, Susan, me, Tom, Cecilia, I believe are the four people on the list currently. So if a question arises, if you want to, just talk about Hanford, the HAB, anything, please reach out to us. I think they include phone number and email. We're kind of on call for whatever you want to talk about. Josh, I don't know if there were any additional people added.
Dan Sillet's a past HAB member, also volunteered to be a
Okay.
member or a mentor. A comment from Ryan.
I was just going to share, I'm not on the list because obviously I'm not like the HAB member for the HAB mentor list, but I just wanted to share from the state standpoint. If anybody ever has any questions about like the state's role, any kind of Hanford questions we can answer, always feel free to reach out to me too. I'm always happy to answer. And I think my contact information is on like the HAB member contact or the HAB contact sheet that Josh puts out. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys know you can always come to me too outside of meetings.
Alongside the mentor list, which you can find at this back table, there is a full HAB contact list for every member of the HAB that is given permission to provide their contact information. The last page of that includes Lindsay, Ryan, and Roberto, who can answer questions for their respective agencies, as well as the HAB library, which is a phone that goes directly to me if you have relevant questions. If you find that your information is missing off that contact list and would like to include it in a future version, Chandra has permission sheets that you can fill out. And is there anything else to say about this mentor list item? All right. And so the next item is HAB status or action item status updates. I believe one item we're tracking is a proposal for a change to the HAB calendar. Is that right?
Susan, it has you leading this conversation. You want to take a lead?
For this section, you said it's like the change, there was a proposal at the September meeting to change the swap the August and September dates. Put the committee meeting in August or the board meeting in August and the committee meeting in September. Currently, it's the opposite. And the agencies had the action to go back and look and see if that was viable or not.
So from the department's perspective, and we did talk about this with the ESC, what is feasible is to host the August or the board meeting proposed for August 13th and 14th in lieu of the August 5 and 6. And then we would move the subcommittee meetings to September 9 and 10. So it would just be pushing back the subcommittee, or I'm sorry, the board meeting a week. And then moving the committee meetings to Tuesday and Wednesday. Correct. So it would be the board meeting would be August 13th and 14th, and the subcommittee meetings would be September 9th and 10th.
Does anyone have any issue with that? Do we have a consensus in agreement to that change?
We have quorum?
Do we have quorum? Good point.
We do.
I believe we do. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Yeah, we've got 16, more than 16 around the table right now.
Yeah, 16 was the needed number, and we've met that just in the room.
All right, so do we have everybody nod their head or shake their head? That way, I also know everybody's awake. Okay, so we have an agreement on those changes.
Yeah.
I also had a couple of other actions.
Okay.
Um,
Facilitation will update the calendar and distribute it in this week's HAB happenings. Thanks, Josh.
Josh, can you make that smaller so we can see the whole calendar? There we go. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. And the next status or next action item to follow up on.
I had, we approved the work plan in September also, with an agreement that the tribal holidays and the tribal holidays would be added and the 3 words would be defined.
So the agencies have not had the ability to get together to talk about the 3-word definition. We have just been extremely busy. And the tribal holidays, what we have thus far has been provided to facilitation to add to the HAB calendar. So there will be additional holidays provided from the Hanford Tribal Office, and those will be added when they arrive.
Okay, thank you. Land acknowledgement agreement or statement, sorry, land acknowledgement statement. Oh, sorry, yes.
Can we have a commitment from the TPA agencies as to when they will meet to make that definition? Is it sometime in the next 365 days or is it?
I would hope so.
Okay, well, I mean, can we say by the next board meeting, that decision will be made?
I don't know if I can commit to the next board meeting right now. I will just say this is the first week that Ryan personally has not been out of town or at some kind of all-day event or a HAB or something like that. And I mean, I have today, but so like Lindsay said, we've just been so slammed. We just barely had a chance to even check in with each other. But it is something that we've got the action item, and it's high up on my list to knock out. So I don't think I have a specific timeline I can offer because I would hate to commit to a time and then fail to meet that time. But it's on top of my list, and I think we're gonna try and follow up and start taking action on it after the board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Land acknowledgement statement.
So this was shared at the September board meeting that this is being worked with the tribes through the Hanford Tribal Office. And we will provide an update when they have reached an agreement. So there is nothing that the HAB needs to track on the land acknowledgement at this time.
I understand there was a Hanford Stigwig state and thank you. That's one acronym I struggle with. Had a meeting last week. Do you know if it was discussed?
I don't. I don't. I will get an update from Karen Lutz, but as far as as far as I've heard, I haven't heard that has been decided upon. So I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
So it's not an action item that we're asking the HAB to track. It is being worked through the tribes and the Hanford Tribal Office.
But it is a HAB action from the August 2023 board meeting. So I am tracking it as a HAB action because it was an agreement between the HAB and DOE. So, and then the last one on my list was just for awareness. At the November meeting, there was discussion about the extension of the chair's position and to comply with the decision made by the HAB during the May meeting. And just so everybody knows, the agencies, tri-party agencies did in fact extend my term to the end of September. So that is resolved, and all of the leadership terms for both committees and board now will expire on September 30th with a start date for next fiscal year, October 1st. So we've lined up all of the leadership terms consistent with the membership package dates and kind of cleaned up that piece. So just want to make sure everybody knew that that letter had that extension has been in fact completed.
And Rob, do you have something to add to this?
What's worse than an acronym? Somebody saying a 3-word acronym. I still don't know what you're talking about. What is the acronym we're waiting
Oh,
on?
are you asking about Stigwig?
No, the three words are action, advice, and
And informational.
Oh, the definitions.
Definitions of those three.
Okay.
Those were three words that were included in this this fiscal year's version of the work plan.
Right.
And we requested that they be defined so that we all understand what those words, have consistent understanding of what those words mean.
You're right. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other actions to follow up on? Okay. So, and the final item of board business is a calendar review and discussion of upcoming meetings. And the most pressing upcoming meetings are the ones that are occurring tomorrow. I wanted to give Chris and Rob another chance to talk about what we're going to be doing tomorrow morning.
So the meeting tomorrow from 9 to 10 is a kickoff meeting for the IM team with the ultimate goal of providing advice on work priorities for fiscal year 2027. There are about 7 members so far, the IM team, and we welcome new members or old members to join. I think the more input we get, especially this year, the better we'll be. So what the meeting will consist of tomorrow, there will be an agenda that Joss will show, followed by a quick review of a very simplified budget cycle for the U.S. government and DOE to show you where our advice fits in that budget cycle. We'll show the work priority advice from last year in order to give you an idea of the format that we want this advice to take. We use the same format as we have the last couple of years. That seems to have gone over well. And then we'll talk about the approach that I'd like to take this year. It'll be maybe a little bit different than in years past in terms of putting together the advice. We'll go over a timeline of deliverables back and forth between myself and team members, as well as calls to discuss and edit the advice as we go forward, and follow up with, at the very end, with questions, comments from anybody who has a question or a comment or thoughts that we might take into account going forward. So it'll be an hour tomorrow. If you're a new member, an IM team is a really great way to get yourself embedded in what's going on at the site. And especially since we're talking about work priorities, you'll find that there's going to be a lot of discussion from among the members on what they feel is important or their constituents feel is important. And that'll give you a really good overview of types of work or possible types of work that we think DOE and tri-party agencies should prioritize. Irrespective of this IM team, Rob has one following up, and there will be other IM teams going forward. Get involved with an IM team because they're much smaller groups of people. You don't have to worry about speaking up in front of a large group or about asking questions in front of a large group, but IM teams are a really great way to get involved.
Yeah, I can add to that one a little bit. Can you remember the advice number of last time? What number was it? Yeah. 315. Okay. So okay, good. I was going to suggest that people take a look at our website again and pull up that advice 315, and then you can take a look at the flavor that we presented the different advice on.
And on the agenda that will be handed out, there are links to that advice. And there are links, there are other links on there too. So you'll see that on the agenda that gets handed out tomorrow.
And I'd say another thing that's very important is that each year we end up getting presented one of these very large 5-year plan that DOE is. And there's, yes. Okay, so I'll bring my copy. I don't know if there's extra copies that we can bring to to the IMs so people can understand what the different categories of work are. As far as the system plan, boy, it's a huge document. And yeah, we'll just sit there and we'll talk about it. We'll discuss the different scenarios. We can talk a little bit about what we want to do. I do find though that there are parts of the system plan that are since the holistic negotiation, it's kind of sets a path for us that is not quite discussed in the system plan. So we have to resolve that, or at least understand what's missing.
Rob, can you define what the system plan is?
The system plan is a combination planning document and a way of looking at the budget and long-term costs of Hanford cleanup. It extends out with 6 main options that go out till 2136 or 2138. So it spaces out over the years. They assembled the cost. They have estimations of the cost. And for example, the one I was just concentrating on before was number 5, option 5, which had something like a $136 billion cost estimate to be completed in the year 2130 or something of that sort, 2136. So it carries these projections out till the end of life of the Hanford site, or in other words, final cleanup.
Is that just the tank waste mission, or is it cleanup of the whole site?
Just the tank waste.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say it concentrates on the high level waste. So yes.
Josh, in last Thursday's memo that you sent out, are there links to these meetings tomorrow?
I know the time and place for these meetings. I sent a Teams link, should you want to attend online, to the IM team members. If you would like to attend that online, please let me know. You can email hab@slind.net, and I'll have that link to you tomorrow. For those interested in attending in person, that will be in a smaller version of this room, with the cleanup priorities IM team meeting at 9 o'clock and the system plan team meeting at 10:15. Welcome to attend either or both. All right. With that, the next HAB events will be in January. We'll be holding meetings for each of the committees across Wednesday and Thursday, the 15th and 16th. And we'll be meeting as a full board again at February 12th and 13th. And the full board location is not determined yet. And the committees will be meeting at the Richland Library. Yes. You can meet in the Tri-Cities or online. And I think that about concludes board business. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
All right, so before I close this meeting, I do have a few announcements. The first one is that the HAB membership applications are due December 6th. So if you are up for renewal and eligible to continue to serve, Marianne has sent you an email. And the second announcement that I have is that this meeting will be my last formal meeting as your DDFO and federal coordinator for the Hanford board, as I'll be transitioning to a new role within the department. While I step away, Kelly Snyder, the designated federal officer, will be filling in to allow HAB business to continue as usual until a replacement DDFO is identified. Marianne and Laura will continue to support HAB operations. I encourage you to continue to work any HAB-related questions through the facilitation team. They will ensure that your question gets to the proper person for response. Now with that, without a permanent DDFO, Hanford will not be able to host the spring chairs EMSSAB meeting. the EM Nevada site will now be hosting the spring meeting with Hanford scheduled to host in the fall. The spring chairs meeting dates will remain the same, April 22nd to the 24th, and the fall chairs meeting is tentatively scheduled for October 28th through the 30th. An email will be distributed tomorrow announcing the change to the entire EMSSAB. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to work with each of you and look forward to seeing the great work the Hub will accomplish in FY25 and beyond. And that's all I have. So thank you, and this meeting's adjourned.
Don't be a stranger.